Everyone, and welcome to another episode of By the Numbers, the quintessential Counterstrike podcast. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Joining me as he does every week, it is the esports historian, Duncan Thorin Shields. We've got Sam Bainlaw Davies pressing buttons and editing VODs in record times. It's all good. And it's going to be another classic filler episode, I would say, based on the amount of news. I mean, the sponsor plugs even got cut down for this episode, so we might be in and out. Obviously, no beep.com anymore. They're officially gone without them. I don't know if they're still on the overlay. Are they, Sam? I'm not looking. Wow.
I took them off, mate. They're gone.
Fucking brutal. I didn't even accidentally give them a freebie.
I almost forgot just as we went live, and then someone wrote, like, RIP Rivalry in a chat. I was like, oh, fuck yeah, those gotta go.
Yeah. Gotta update the bot and all that other stuff. But yeah, it's, as I said, sad, but there will be another name coming to this space soon, hoping to have that all wrapped up by the end of the week. So if you're interested in that type of thing, I might tweet about it instead of just doing tweets about industry disgrace. Like, for example, obviously, people just don't have memories, do they? Like, we went, oh, yeah, it's great. FaZe are on the cover of Sports Illustrated. They're our esports heroes. It's a bit weird that they didn't put any of their esports personalities on the cover, but whatever. I'm sure there's a very good reason for that. Wait, the article barely mentions esports at all and just talks about streaming culture. Oh, well, that's all right. At least it's good for the whole industry. Fast forward a week, FaZe members are involved in crypto pump and dump scam. And everyone goes, bloody hell, FaZe are at it again. Why did we ever put them on a pedestal? Today they announced FaZe Clan will be working with McDonald's on content to promote diversity and inclusiveness. Great choice, because they'll scam anyone, no matter what background you're from, no matter what gender identity you have, no matter what sexuality you have. They'll fucking rip off anybody. They don't care.
So that is so egregious, because if people don't realise, of all the teams, right, think of what the theme of FaZe Clan is. It's the ultimate bro fucking frat house team, isn't it? So the idea that is your diversity fucking partnership, like, that makes an actual, like, explicit mockery of the premise you're even, like, pretending to have. Like, by definition, if you had to put together a fucking artist composite of who the person who might say the naughty things that you don't want for diversity, it'd be a fucking FaZe Clan member.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it'd be getting some fuckboy haircut, like earring, piercing. Well, it'd be exactly a FaZe Clan member, wouldn't it?
I know. This is what I mean, dude. It's like you are watching.
We're in clown world now, aren't we? We're fully clown world now.
It's just the last days of Sodom and esports, isn't it? And it just has to be destroyed.
I almost feel like that, because, like, if people don't know, in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, obviously there was that whole thing where it was like, if he could have found, I think it was like 10 good men in the whole city, you know, that would be spared.
Yeah, exactly.
The premise was there was like 2 good men basically. So yeah, it's almost like that. It's like, I just feel like if I could just find 10 OGs that haven't sold out in esports, like. No. It's about 3, Richard. They've all said that.
Now, I will add, just for the purposes of the broadcaster not being called a bigot, obviously, the Sodom and Gomorrah story, they did consider it bad that people were buggering each other. And that was the problem, apparently, which I don't have a problem with that at all. So, you know, not everything in the old... But as a metaphor, it works. But not everything literally from the Old Testament works, almost as if it's a really old book, and we should probably update our shit. But, you know, humans.
And to be fair, you could also apply the same razor to just all biblical or holy books. Maybe if we consider them all as metaphors instead of real life accounts.
I know, imagine that.
Get more out of it, couldn't you? Wouldn't have to even kill anyone over any of that shit. You could just have great ideas and just enjoy them.
Great ideas and just discuss them. No chance of that, though, Duncan. But anyway, before we roll back the years and turn this into a 2010 edgy atheist podcast, guest star
they've really aged badly, haven't they? You know, not least because, like, there's no one in that scene anymore. Everyone's just gone in it. Like, all right.
Well, you know, like I've talked about this quite a bit. The reality is that religion never went away. It just morphed into something else. So there's this idea that it's almost like blasé to be an atheist because we've kind of moved past it. Well, no, what we've done is we've channeled the energy we would put into a religion, that dogmatic approach to a new orthodoxy and living our lives by a prescribed set of rules from which not only must we not deviate, but we must also proselytize to everybody else that you must live this way and hold these values and sermonize at every opportunity we get. And also, like a lot of religious figures, while you're doing sick shit in your downtime, you have to make it sure that the optics, at least, of you are that you're very devout. That's all just been channeled into online politics, into, particularly American politics, social media status, influencer culture. These are your new gods that you have chosen. All the dynamics are the same, Duncan. But again, it's all right. We're not gonna. It's not that episode. Not yet. There is still a little bit about Counterstrike to talk about. So anyway, first shout out to the one remaining sponsor, NordVPN. I actually went and looked up what the deal was because the deal always changes. And I think up until the 19th of August, you get 73% off if you sign up using my referral code. And that includes 4 months free at the start. It was originally you get the first month free. Now you get 4 months free, and that's running up until the 19th. So it's pretty crazy. It's a really good deal. It's a good product. May as well go and sign up. Why not? It's cheap. Go to nordvpn.com/RLS. Get yourself a VPN. Right. Stories then. Why don't we start at a story that was breaking as the last episode went live on the day, because there's always news on the day of By the Numbers. And it was about.
Wait, speaking of which, I should just follow. This is just a callback to the last episode because people think I'm trolling when I made this post on social media, Richard. It's not a joke. I didn't buy this, as you would know if you listened to, I think, the last episode or the second to last one, where I put comment like, this is how, here's the problem, Richard. I'm going to give you the preamble before I show you the context so no one gets twisted, right? People are going to say, sadly, Richard, they're going to go, see, ESL's not that bad. They've got a good sense of humour, Thorin. But you know ESL, Richard, and you know that they didn't send me this as a hilarious chip. They have so little self-awareness.
Yeah.
They actually thought I would think this was a great piece of trivia souvenir. That's right. They've actually no joke, they really sent me the fucking Monopoly. They sent me the motherfucking esports Monopoly. The shit one that doesn't have any players in. You're just doing DreamHark Opens and that. And then, by the way, so lazy, didn't even change that, free parking and stuff to anything to esports. It's just free parking still. That doesn't even make sense. We live in the 21st century. They actually sent it. Like, they really thought, because here's the problem, Richard, like I say, they're going to go, all the fans are going to go, see, Thorin. Obviously, they saw the episode and they thought, well, it's a good joke. No, I guarantee you, in their brain, this is what they thought. They thought, Thorin's the esports historian. He might want to one day put that in some kind of a museum or something. Like, that's the level.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't.
Listen, maybe I'm pushing it a bit too far now. But
you are.
I think they thought I was going to do some sort of Canton-esque, like, you're in the NFL.
You are going full cycle with that bit. Like, listen.
Mate, I can't believe I even fucking went to pick this package up. The package has arrived here, and I've opened that like, is this a fucking joke? Why am I wasting time with this? This is stupid, isn't it?
Listen, here's what I will say, right?
So stupid,
because no matter how much criticism we level on ESL on this show, there are still people within that company I have a lot of time for.
That's a legit
and
thing,
the fact that they decided to spend that money to not only send that to you by, and also that they've still got your address on file and they knew it would be straight fire to do it, right? They, that's fucking hilarious, mate.
It's funny,
they've absolutely wrecked you there. So
open it like, oh, this looks fucking good. What's this? Literally that shit game I was just wrecking 2 weeks ago, whatever it sound.
I still think as well, though, by the way, I think somebody actually suggested it after the last episode. I think we should make our own version. A limited edition.
Yeah.
By the Numbers Monopoly. We'll have to sit down and because I've got some spare time coming up, right? I wanted to talk to you. So since we just have conversations on the podcast now, this is like the only time we talk and hang out. I want to do something via video as a concept that I did via article about probably fucking 8 years ago now.
Okay.
And I did this thing, right? So I need you because you're the historian, but I also need one or two other people who were there at CSGO from the start, right?
Okay.
And I'm gonna get my graphics guys to make some sick overlays and transitions and stuff. And the concept I did, and it nearly fucking broke Cadred when I did it because people didn't understand it because they're morons, was I did this thing called time travel LAN, which is you theory craft and based on statistics and other metrics, whatever you want to use. We had a panel, and basically we worked out all the great teams in Counterstrike source history from all different eras. They all go to a theoretical, futuristic LAN that takes place in another dimension, essentially. And we all worked out who would win, and we covered it on the site like it was a real LAN. And what was happening was all the morons were turning up going, is there a LAN? How? Because they didn't get the premise, right? So every day,
Angel Dust still playing. It's like 2012 or something.
Yeah, it was like that, mate. It was seriously like that. People were even going so far as to say that what you should have done is got all the old players together to actually play it for real, as if in any way that would be better. And of course it wouldn't. And those motherfuckers were all like 30 and stuff then. So what would be
we're simulating, like in this case, it would be like Fnatic 2015 versus Astralis 28. And
so what we do is we pick the top 16 teams across all eras, and we would work out, we would pick a format. And then what I thought we'd do is me, you, and plus one or two, we would sit, discuss each round, who would win, why, cast votes if needed, if it wasn't unanimous, work the way through, and then chop it up into episodic content. We could probably get a 6 sponsor just for that, by the way, and divvy up the money.
Yeah.
So I'll hit you up for that. It's up on my whiteboard. I've been kicking ideas around. Right, anyway, so you've been trolled by ESL. I've got nothing but free fucking time on my hands, which DeSoto must love hearing me say that, by the way, every time I come on the show. Yeah, I've got loads of free time. Then we are paying you a full-time salary, Mr. Lewis? Yeah, I know, I just turn up when I want, though, don't I? And record a video when I want, shout into a webcam for a living now. Rock bottom, some would call it, but I'll take the money. But let's talk about the story that was breaking when we did the last episode, and that was, of course, the Hunden story. So I will give the summary because I don't think I saw you retweeted my video about it. I did for DeSoto, but I don't know if you've done your own yet.
No, I haven't done anything at all on it.
Right, I didn't think so. So I wanted to get your opinion. So anyway, for those that don't know, Hunden, of course, was one of the original 37 coaches that were banned for the use of the coaching bug, which was a bug where sometimes during the online era, where a coach would be on the server, they wouldn't load essentially into the area where you could see the player perspectives. They would be in some sort of weird shadow realm where they could see a part of the map they wouldn't ordinarily be able to see and would have access to information they wouldn't ordinarily be able to access. Information that could then be communicated to their players to give them a disproportionate advantage in the game. When that ban occurred, Hunden got ahead of the story and basically publicly said, yes, I cheated. I cheated in these two games specifically. I cheated against Astralis in a very close series that happened back in May. It was like a 19-17, 16-14, 2-0 win to Astralis. And he did it for 14 rounds there. And he did it for 10 rounds against Spirit in one of those like Snow Sweet Snow Cups. And because he came forward and was very direct and cooperated with ESIC, he was shown leniency in his sentencing. And I think generally, because this also overlapped with a time that Heroic had been doing well and the cheating was prior to that, that Heroic had come into their own element with Hunden as a coach. I think a lot of people were like, all right, you're a bit of a cunt, but we'll give you we'll give you the benefit of the doubt. And of course, Heroic sort of also did the same by refusing to fire him, a move which we criticized them for on the show. And they basically kept him around. They moved him into a lateral position until he served his sentence and then moved him back to head coach. Well, this last week, as we know, he's been heavily linked with Astralis, and he has publicly came out again to try and get ahead of the story and saying there are rumors circulating that I distributed strats from Heroic ahead of IEM Cologne. I didn't do that. It was just anti-strats. And I need to do that as a coach because it makes me better. And this is definitely the norm. And coaches definitely do this. It's how we all improve our skill set. Heroic came out and told a very different version of the story, which was he didn't just disseminate anti-strats. He actually, we said we weren't taking him to Cologne, and he petulantly locked us out of the resources folder and shared anti-strats with other people with a view to potentially impacting on the integrity of the tournament. Now, we'll get to the subsequent investigations and their findings in a moment, but this is where I'll bring you in. I've seen a lot of people kind of going, oh, this has been really overplayed by Heroic. I can't understand that at all. For me, this level of petulance and pathetic behavior from Hunden, they were absolutely right to terminate his contract, and I think he should serve a ban of some sort because his intention was to subvert the outcome of a tournament to hurt his former employers. I don't know any other way that you can spin it, right?
No, that's what I found was so bizarre about this. Like, one of the things that actually sickens me in esports is when people just get kind of like, it's actually kind of like what we were talking about on that Four Horsemen episode, that like people are outraged, but they're outraged for 2 days, and then they're like, right, well, I'm past that, I'm on the next thing. They do this thing, Richard, you'll have seen it tons of times. When I'm dredging up all that info about TSM last year, or when we were doing the Astralis story, people just get a fatigue to the story. So it's like, they're just sort of like, look, I'm already sick of being outraged at coaches, so unless he's literally murdered someone, I'm just kind of don't want to talk about it anymore. And they can't just then fuck off. They have to sort of like annoy you by going, why are you still going on about that? You're making a lot out of nothing. And you're not, it's just they're bored with the story. I find this to be even more significant than the fucking coaching bug thing. Because loads of people were doing the coaching bug. There really was a world where he might have gotten away with that. The way he's done this, as you say, if indeed he has done what it has been claimed, which is he not only denied his own team access to the strats he designed for them, but then subsequently did his level best to share those with, based on the follow-up story, at least one party. We don't even know who, by the way. So there even is the implication, which people have tried to draw, of like, God forbid it's Astralis, if he was actually now going to Astralis. That just puts another layer of cunt on this story. That, quite frankly, we're getting to the territory now, mate, where if that was really the case, we're starting to look at, like, I'd say, like, we're talking like 4 or 5 year bans now. We're talking like enormous bans, because you're trying to have massive impact on like the game that has nothing to do with you. First of all, on the Heroic side of things,
Heroic actually played Astralis at Cologne as well, of course.
Exactly. Right. Think about this. If you're Heroic, right, if people don't know, whenever you sign a contract in esports with any kind of a creative component, it always says in the contract, fairly boilerplate, right, written, essentially, we own your creative output while you work for us. Yep. So, for example, this has never really happened, but I'll give you an example. I used to work with Deserto, where Richard works. If, in theory, I told Deserto, right, for September, you know, I'm going to write like 4 pieces, but then I left like a week before the end of September, and I'd only published 3 of those pieces. If they pay me my full amount of money for that month, they're totally within their rights to say, give us the 4th piece. Doesn't matter that I'm leaving. I wrote that on their time. Like, that was part of my deal with them in that case. Obviously, in this case, if it was a retainer, not per piece, because then you can make the argument, right? So, absolutely, I think that's insane that he denied Heroic access to the folder. As long as you were still their coach and you're still getting paid a salary, that's their strats, Hunden. They aren't your strats, mate. The second you committed them to paper, did your job, they became their strats. You're essentially holding their property, as far as I'm concerned. So that in itself is outrageous. Then the idea you would dare to share that with someone else in the community. I'm not joking, mate. I'm fairly open to the idea of rehabilitation. You have shown you have no interest in being rehabilitated. Like, you are actually a danger to this scene, and you should get the fuck out. Now, there's another angle I will draw, which I just want to make this point, because I didn't see anyone else make this point, actually. I thought it was a bang on point. Even though oftentimes he has takes that sometimes will go counter to mine. Nessie also, who people might know worked as, I think, like a tournament admin for Blast. He was obviously like a coach or head of operations.
ESL legend as well, yeah.
He's godsend with a bunch of different orgs, yep. Right? He basically made a tweet I thought was one of the most on-point comments of all, which was, wait a minute, I'm going to obviously paraphrase here. So Heroic's mad at Hunden now because his unethical behavior now directly hurts Heroic. But when he was just directly hurting other teams in the scene, Heroic was fine with it. I'll take what he just said there and extend it one further. So people will have heard the rumor that Astralis was going to sign Hunden. Same principle. Astralis is outraged that Hunden would potentially cheat against them with a coaching bug. But if he wants to come and be their coach, a cheater, then they're totally cool with it and come on, you're welcome on in. What these companies are explicitly telling you guys is, that's right, I don't give a flying fuck about ethics. I just don't like losing. And if I lose, I'll pretend it was because of ethics, and I'll pretend I'm doing the right thing now by punishing Hunden. But if anything, by the way, I'd even say, based on that track record, Heroic's being petulant. Like, they're just salty that they got fucked this time. They were fine when everyone else was getting fucked. So I think the whole thing is a clusterfuck. It's bad luck for everyone involved in this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and I tried to dig into this behind the scenes because I got sent the Heroic press release before it went public.
Okay.
And obviously within that press release, they explicitly say they're terminating his contract and pursuing legal action, and that the Danish court has already stated there is enough actionable behavior that they would have a case.
Would it
Now,
make sense? It's almost like a type of espionage, what you're trying to do, like sabotage the team.
well, I mean, it comes just down to a standard breach of contract first and foremost, doesn't it? I mean, because you've taken work that explicitly is owned by the org that you were paid to do for the org. You've denied them access to that, so that's an arguable breach of contract there. The fact that you've then also essentially worked with a competitor, which is the allegation. Well, there's going to be language in your contract that precludes you from doing that too, and they're just the first two things that immediately leap out before we even get to the espionage element and a potential tortious interference aspect, which is what type of talks have gone on with Astralis prior to this. And as I've said, I've asked around, nobody, like, everyone is so cagey on this, I guess because of the legal proceedings, but they will not give me a straight answer. So my question has been, was it Astralis? And everyone just says, can't answer that. Not no.
Yeah, because by the way, one thing we should probably make more explicit is since the story that potentially Hunden could be replacing Zonic, like, I'm trying to think of the date. What's that story just after Clone? I think it must have been, right? I think it must have been. Right.
Yep.
But basically, again, I don't want to blow any fans' mind, but if a story comes public, people behind the scenes likely knew weeks in advance. That basically means the fact that the Heroic did sit Hunden at home and not take him as their coach, combined with this locking them out of the folder, the implication is that the whole Astralis potential meddling with his contract, as you're saying, is the entire ambience of what's going on with Heroic and Hunden. So that's why I say, God forbid it turns out it is Astralis who had access to that folder and didn't happen to click the link, as we're going to get into with the investigation. Because if it was, then Hunden, in my opinion, is fucked up just from A to Z, and like should have a very harsh punishment in exchange for that.
Yeah, well, just to follow up on that point as well, obviously, the way they worded it in their statement was that they didn't take him because there'd been a breakdown in trust. Now, what do you trust the coach with? You trust the coach with tactics. You trust the coach, to be dedicated to your cause, to have the team's interests at heart. Well, that would obviously be compromised if he had agreed to move to another org, if he'd had talks with another org, if there were any speculation that he might already be working for another org. And by the way, this is how I know Hunden isn't particularly clever either, which is the upsetting thing, because I've known him for a long time. All he would have to say publicly is, yes, I was in talks with another org and I shared examples of my work as part of that interview process. I didn't realize that it would be viewed as being negative. Now, he didn't say that, so we can infer that isn't what happened. And so it and trying to explain away, by the way, anti-strats as being like some unimportant, frivolous thing. I don't think that makes any sense at all. And I don't think that would happen in mainstream sports. I mean, they were a bit more forgiving over on the HLTV Confirmed podcast. I watched their section about it, and they were kind of like just explaining it away that, if you know a team's tendencies and you share that information with another team, you're not really doing anything wrong. Well, I think, first of all, that's a nonsense view, and it doesn't take a particularly broad view of the scene and how it operates, especially given how frequently teams are playing each other at the moment because of the saturation of events. So I'll spell it out as I did on a stream and as I did in the Deserto video, but we'll do it here as well. Right. If I come up with a master plan as a coach to beat Team X, right, for my team, for when we play them, but I then give that master plan to Team Y, and in a scrim or at a competition, Team Y play Team X and beat Team X using the plan I've come up with, Team X will now change their tendencies and change their strats to react to the fact that Team Y beat them, thus making Team X better. My team then has to play the new improved Team X. I have worked against my own team's interests.
Yes.
So why people can't grasp that as a concept, I don't really know. I kind of feel like sometimes maybe I'm taking fucking crazy pills. Maybe I am reading too much into it, but nobody seemed to understand that premise when I brought it up either.
Nah, mate, that's a problem they have on that podcast in general. I generally don't try to talk bad at that podcast. I make jokes about some of the people I think are morons on the podcast. For example, I think Sponge does a very good job. I think it does play an important role in the community. It's a different vibe to our podcast. But one thing I will say is, on topics like these, where you have to justifiably call out someone who might have even appeared on your podcast, grow some fucking balls or get out the space. Like, we have no time for people who are going to equivocate just because you like the guy. Because, by the way, as you're saying here, like, that's a whack angle. As you're pointing out, you could even, we're not talking about, here's the problem, right? What they've tried to do there, Richard, is conflate it with something that everyone does know happens. So, for example, right, do you imagine if they were at a tournament and Zeus was the coach of Evil Geniuses and MIBR's playing and Evil Geniuses goes out of the tournament, that Zeus can't be having a beer with Fallen and Fallen can't go? So did you have any good stuff against Cloud9 that I could use? And he might go, yeah, you know, some stuff on how they take banana I could tell you about. That's different, right? In that scenario, you notice I was explicit that, like, they already have an obvious connection. His team's out of the tournament. It can't affect his team. All he's basically doing is giving you the Cliff's notes, right? No. In this scenario, we're talking about a team who explicitly has left the coach at home because they do not trust him. By the way, when your euphemism is, we broken down trust, holy fuck at what the euphemism's implying. That already sounds bad enough. And you not only leave him at home, implication being, by the way, we can't trust him to even be at the tournament with his shit. He might be telling us the wrong stuff. Then he's going to share potential information like this, where, as you say, he could literally, by the way, be sharing information if it was Astralis. That means they win a match that, as Richard says, means you get a harder opponent for your team, the team that pays him the motherfucking salary. And the reason why I say I don't buy the angle that they just sort of like took the wrong read on this one is because, dude, one that I almost called them out on in the past was the fucking Akuma one. You know, when they had Blade on that show, they were asking Blade about, you know, does he think that, like, the Akuma guys cheated? Dude, Sponge, I very rarely call people out by name, but I'm going to do it on this one. He had one of the most pathetic, loaded questions I've ever heard. First of all, he used the method of interviewing, which is just ask. But I get it, he's not an interviewer, which is you don't do this. Was it A, something simple, or was it B, this context that sounds like my opinion, and of course this extra thing that's clearly my opinion, and of course we'd all agree upon this, so which one was it? Like, that's a loaded question, bro. It's so obvious you want me to say B. He did that, right, Richard? But the premise was like this. So Blade, what do you think? Do you think Akuma was maybe cheating or doing something? Or are people maybe, you know, just getting a bit, you know, panties in a bunch because they lost a game and taking it too far? And dude, you could tell by the way he set it up, like, he gave Blade every chance to just say, yeah, it was probably the latter, wasn't it? You can't really know. And then when Blade basically just goes like, no, I think he's 100% cheating, he was almost like, shit, well, fuck. It's like, did you not get the answer you wanted, bro? Which did you want? Did you want him to answer the question, or did you want him to placate your feelings and say what you want him to say? Because in my opinion, the latter is pretty inappropriate for an interview. So I'll just say, like, it wouldn't be exactly like far from the path of the course. That in this case, as I say, mate, they've had people like, I'm sure Hunter must have been on their show. It's even a fucking Danish website. He's a Danish mainstay veteran. Like, it does seem that you are going out your way to sort of give him the soft fucking sell angle on it. Like, you're not trying to go hard on him for that, which I find outrageous because the guy is already provably cheated as a fucking coach. So in my opinion, like, we're getting at the point where you have to sort of throw the book at him, and you can't. This isn't a kid glove scenario. And what I don't get is I don't care that you like him. By the way, one thing we might even get to in a minute is a lot of people are going to think, well, he's joining the scene now. The sad thing is this, by the way, I would even tell people who are team org owners, rather, look, I wouldn't do it ethically. But if you're a guy like most of you who don't give a fuck about ethics, I'd low-key hire this guy privately and just have him scout players for you and just be your secret GM. Like, he is fucking amazing at it. So sadly, the guy's talent probably does warrant him being in the scene. It's just, I think, if you're going to turn a blind eye to that, how the fuck are you ever going to then turn around and start making a big deal about Face It fucking embedding a stream on their site, you know, we're like criminals for boosting? Like, give me a break. What is your fucking hierarchy of values, dude?
Yeah, it's a strange one. And then you get to the point where it was investigated right? So this broke during Cologne because they investigated it during Cologne. And ESL, first of all, put a statement out because they were reacting to Hunden's statement and Heroic statement. And I'll read you what the Flying DJ had to say about it. ESIC had been notified, I'm guessing by Heroic, that Hunden had shared a folder with information with a person at a team who was also competing in the tournament. Upon receiving this notification, we started investigating the allegations. During this investigation, our conclusive findings were that while permissions to access a shared folder were sent, the folder was not accessed by the recipient. Consequently, there was no possible impact to the tournament integrity of IEM Cologne. In the context of IEM Cologne, it was not necessary to determine whether the information itself and its sharing was a punishable offence. This will instead be part of an ongoing investigation by ESIC and potentially the subject of legal proceedings between Heroic and Hunden. The integrity of our tournaments has always been the focus of our attention. We have taken deliberate and swift measures when tournament integrity was threatened in the past, and we will continue to take all necessary action to make sure it is upheld now and in the future. And this is part of a wider trend that I'm starting to see with all of these orgs that have bought into the ESIC, way of doing things, which is you sign up to ESIC and ESIC will handle, what they say are sort of high level, deep investigations into integrity issues using their extensive network of contacts and their legal expertise. But that, to me, it should be something that happens in addition to your own investigation and your own
they even going to
decisions.
logistically do all these cases, which you've said it on the past ones. They were struggling with the MDL one. They can't do like 7 cases at the same time, surely.
Let's be real. The reality is ESIC is completely overloaded, and therefore, unfortunately, the reality is that when they are this overloaded and cannot and are still having more and more things pile up onto their plate, and they don't have the workforce to clear a backlog and stuff still coming in, functionally that it's almost like incompetence. Because nothing's going to get resolved in a satisfactory manner. Stuff's going to be rushed, as we saw, for example, with the Australian scene, where it wasn't their fault, but they jumped the gun in making the rulings, and then saw, ESEA haven't updated their rulings to say you must abide by the ESIC code of conduct in Australia. Everyone gets off on a technicality that undermines confidence in it as a whole, and so you've just had these kind of like staggering, the match fixing reports out in a week or two. What was that, 6 months ago?
Ages ago, yeah.
So unfortunately, you've got this like staggering degree of just bad decisions being made for a body that you're meant to. Everyone has to have confidence in it for the whole system to work. So one of the things I've hated, and I've brought this up with the Blast staff privately, I've brought it up with the ESL staff privately, is you must still take your own action. You must. You can't just say, well, our agreement is that we will follow E6 rulings. That's great, but what are you going to do in the interim? And certainly what should have come out from ESL is that while it didn't affect the integrity of the tournament, the intent and possibility was there, and therefore Hunden is suspended from ESL events ongoing until the ESIC finalized their report and ruling on the matter. That's what would happen in mainstream sports, by the way.
Sure.
That's what would happen in an office, by the way. If somebody was caught doing something like that, they would be suspended, i.e. removed from the potential to do harm while an investigation was formed. And if they were found innocent, it's paid leave, essentially. So, that's what you would do for a fact find of that nature in a business. So,
by the way, just so like a fan doesn't get it twisted, like as you say, it doesn't matter. By the way, it would have been worse, but it doesn't matter that no one clicked the link. The act of sharing that link shows clear intent that you want someone to potentially look at that information. You don't then get, this is basically like if we caught him before he did a bank robbery and the other people just didn't turn up with a car. Like, you don't just go, oh, well, you did have all these plans and that, let's say I get, scot-free, you just get to go. No, you would still get some punishment. And then the other thing I have to say is this, because I feel like this will be really misunderstood. This is another example. One of the saddest things about all these particular cases of corruption to me is how dumb the fucking criminals are in them. They don't even take the basic, like, you're sending fucking Google folder invitations that also generate an email track, like chain link. Also, by the way, anyone who's the owner of that website will have gotten a notification. It just said no permissions with this account. Like that, dude, the chain. All you had to do was take the fucking documents, put them on one of those free transfer websites, and send someone what's almost an anonymous link, not entirely, but like, you could just go, well, anyone could have done that. It was a leak. It wasn't me. Like, you don't even give yourself any plausible deniability. Like, dude, Hunden is just a fucking idiot. That's probably the saddest part about all of it. He's not just corrupt. He's an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's like, it just doesn't even look like he's particularly clever. Then you had the ESIC report that sort of came out. And that basically said that they'd conducted preliminary investigations. And again, I'll read you the first few paragraphs from it, where they said that they notified ESL ahead of IEM Cologne. ESL joined ESIC in cooperating with further investigative efforts to determine the impact of Mr. Peterson's alleged actions on the integrity of the tournament. ESIC's preliminary findings on the evidence available were that while Mr. Peterson did engage in behaviour that could constitute a breach of the ESIC integrity programme, the consequences of his behaviour had not impacted on IEM Cologne. Since IEM Cologne, ESIC has continued to engage with the parties involved and impacted by Mr. Peterson's actions, and now awaits any further evidence that may arise from the various seizures carried out under Danish legal processes by Heroic. By seizures, that's quite a severe word, but what they mean there is that, a Danish court has ruled that you can take, like, he can't delete his emails, he can't delete texts, any form of communications around this issue must be preserved for the purposes of it going to court. But that says to me that ESIC are now saying, well, we'll just see what the Danish courts are going to say about it before we act again. And that means that we could be waiting. I mean, we could be waiting fucking years. COVID has slowed legal actions down to a crawl. Everyone's having to do shit over Zoom. Is this even going to impact on Hunden's career at all by the time it takes? I just don't understand how ESL, ESIC, I mean, the community can look at this, see what he's done, see what the intent was, and then just go, yeah, we'll just have to wait and ride this out. Meanwhile, he's out there. There's still a chance he moves to another team. I mean, even if the Astralis move falls through, he's going to probably take work with someone else. We all know from the 37 coaches being banned, no one really gives a fuck about taking a stand over that. Some more than others, but there was a number of orgs that didn't even move people positions. They were just like, yeah, look, we're keeping him on as a coach. He just won't be at events. We don't even recognize E6's authority, frankly, but yeah, we just won't. We'll go along with it because we have to, but he'll still be working for us. So it seems to me that essentially this is just going to be one of those situations where it's just going to drag and drag until everyone forgets about it. And Hunden has essentially got away with not only being a convicted cheat, but also being a wretched employee. Massively unprofessional, and someone who was willing, out of an act of petulance, to potentially subvert the entire outcome of a tournament just to piss off his former paymasters. I think it's outrageous.
Also, yeah, by the way, it's also just whack as a competitor, isn't it? Like, you don't have any respect for the actual history of the game. You're just going to, in one of the biggest tournaments of the year, you're potentially going to fuck with your current employer because you don't like something about him. Like, what's that? What the fuck is that?
Yep. It's mad, and I don't understand as well how like there's a world where Hunden thinks that like when all the facts are made public, it's going to look good for him. It's already terrible going with his version. So I don't know. I mean, for me, I think at this point it should effectively end his career, but I don't think it will. And what I will say is, when I did my video saying, Hunden's destroyed his reputation because he went from being a meme to being respected, to being a convicted cheat, to being given a second chance. To slap that away brazenly like this is outrageous. But I noticed when I put that video out, it was other coaches that were liking that video. It was other coaches that were bookmarking that to watch that. Number of top tier coaches who weren't guilty of cheating. Your fellow professionals despise you and what you've done. So don't tell me it's normal. I'll also just add on that point, the danger you have with having a scene full of fucking just plebs, just idiots that will just regurgitate anything they are told by entities they like. It comes down to personal preference, not facts, always in esports. Yep. I've seen a number of people regurgitating this idea that it's the norm to just share anti-strats, and all coaches do it. And none of these people have any coaching experience or have worked in the scene at tier 1 level, on any level. They're just now going, no, it's just the norm. It's just what people do. 100 said so. So they inferred it on HLTV, confirmed. They said it was no big deal. I have been around the scene for 17 years. In all my time, I've never heard of a coach sharing anything with any other coach. I'm not talking about sitting down and maybe saying, yeah, they do this, bro, or, yeah, they were hard, like, good luck in your game if you want to beat them. Obviously, that type of throwaway conversation at a bar or an event, that goes without saying. To formally share documents and things that you have sort of constructed for the purposes of your team with other coaches, to say that's part of a learning effort. I've never heard of it, and I would suggest if coaches are doing it, you should probably fucking stop, because you're actually undermining, you're undermining your entire profession, frankly, but you're undermining your employers when you do it. So no, I don't think this is the norm by any stretch of the imagination, and I'm pretty sure all the coaches that like that video, I'm pretty sure they don't do it.
Also, just think through like all the statements made publicly. Remember last year, I think it was last year, when we were all memeing on Valence because he made that like semi-stupid suggestion, like, why don't we just all share the demos from scrims? And the joke is like, because you have to do your job, motherfucker. Well, don't you think that would have been an appropriate moment for him to go, besides, we all share anti-strats anyway, just save time? Like, would have been a perfect moment, wouldn't it? It would even have made sense in his argument if indeed they did that.
Never heard a coach say it ever, by the way.
No, as you say it, what people have conflated is obviously, basically what you were talking about is what I was implying. Obviously, the idea, if it was Zeus and Fallen or different teams, is it's when you're having a fucking beer in the bar, isn't it? You just tell them one thing like, watch out with how fucking this guy plays chocolate banana or something like. But it's not the same as sending the guy the fucking Word document with like screenshots, like arrows, fucking like all the demos that they did. Like, that's different, isn't it?
Unlocking your. I mean, I think the worst part of it,
isn't it?
Locking your team out of your own of the prep you've done, as if in some way you get to do that because they're not taking you to an event. You're still under contract at that point. So yeah, I mean, this story's a mess, but we're just not going to get to it. We're not going to get to a resolution in any sort of timely fashion, are we? Because it's got on the e-sick bonfire of just never ending fucking investigations. So whatever. But yeah, I mean, I just thought, like, my advice, if Hunden had any self-respect at this point, he'd just go away. I'll be livid if Astralis still pick him up after this, because what a humiliating climb down to go from Zonic, model professional, greatest coach to ever do it, to, two-time cheater, arsehole that who cheated against you. So you're already asking the fans to just sort of suck that up. That's how little you think of your own fans, So yeah, I'll be outraged.
If they do that, mate, I'll do something. Like if they do that, I might do something, like, because they have to actually learn this time if they do this. Like, this isn't going to be all fun and game. What I'll do is if Astralis actually do still sign Hunden in any form of coaching capacity, I will write an article that I'll expressly write using the style and the wording that like a normal AP press release would have, right? So that in theory it could be picked up by any of the world's media, and I will just explain very simply the basic context that one of the, in theory, the most like decorated organizations in Counterstrike has just signed a repeated convicted cheater who has done numerous on it. I'll just even put their part of what they said. I'll just go out my way and I'll just see if I can get it out there fucking among the mainstream. We'll see how that helps you stop price, shall we?
Yeah.
It's about time people actually had to pay a consequence for that. Think about what the PR hit you'd take in a real industry if you did that. They won't take any, of course, because as you say, half the dickheads on Reddit will just it's like that stupid thing they all keep doing to me, Richard, where when I point out the obvious fact that obviously Nihom and the Astralis management could just choose to be good guys and give Glaive time off. Everyone tells me, Richard, no, but legally in Denmark, he would actually be required. No, I'm saying they're allowed to, you fucking cunts. I'm not saying what the law forces you to do. And they keep saying, Richard, no joke, that because the law says you have to have this doctor's note in this exact way, that they make it sound like Astralis isn't even allowed to give you free time off if they don't have that. People, it's like you say, all they need, they're not actually even attempting to intuit or discern what's true. They're just saying, which level of authority am I going to accept telling me what they tell me? So if, for example, as you're saying, HLTV is my favourite podcast, well, all of a sudden, I don't think it's that big a deal to Shanty Strats. They told me it happens all the time. That's not even your opinion, dude. You just picked it from a fucking set menu. What?
Yeah.
Think.
No, there's none of that thinking. Yeah, not in our business. So yeah, I guess we'll wait and see what happens there, but don't hold your breath that that's getting resolved in this year at least. I'll also just add, just to wrap that up, that story. I think it's a waste of time to pursue legal action for this. I don't even understand what you're going for. What do you do? Do you forego the outstanding payment? Do you claim back money? Are you looking to sue him for punitive damages on a civil level? It just feels like a waste of time for everybody. What you should be doing is focusing on the reputational aspect. And making sure essentially he doesn't go to another team, especially your local Danish rivals, with all the competitor intelligence that he would then have that he could use to re-establish Astralis as the number one team in Denmark.
I told you this. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast. Last year, when because of the whole heroic FPX thing that was happening during Flashpoint 1, and then after that, Richard, where even though the heroic CEO guy, it's a different guy now, obviously, because I think they've sold, right? He kept claiming, no, I hate you, Strauss, and I definitely want to fuck them up because of the FPX deal and the Escher and the way they did that. But then he just gave them fucking Snappy, who technically hadn't signed fully with the Mongolian team. So then magically they had to play a last minute. And I just told this guy straight up, mate, stop telling me you don't like Astralis. Every action you take tells me you are not punishing Astralis for anything they do to you. You are actively aiding them. And this guy told me, no, Thorin, it just looks like that on these first two moves. I tell you, when I get my chance, I'm going to sue them. I'm going to take them to court for everything. Well, you know what, mate? I know that's not the guy, but this is the same org and this is the same track record. If this guy goes to Astralis, it would literally, I'm not joking, be appropriate to pay for a giant billboard ad in Copenhagen to just say Astralis signs cheater coach. That's if you actually hated these people, that's what you would do. You wouldn't just sit, tell you what, I'm gonna bloody get them back for that, and then just do nothing ever. Because as you say, mate, the other thing that I'll come back to what I said about viewer fatigue. The worst thing about these stories is once a month has passed, no one really cares how it gets resolved. The story's old hat at that point, isn't it? So as you're saying, mate, if these don't get run down in the next few months, may as well never get run down. The maddest part is the lag part. We're going to wait years to potentially figure out what we're doing with this case. Then what's the point in ESIC? What's the point in anything in esports? You know what? I didn't necessarily like the approach where ESL just played God with it. It's better than nothing, though. I at least want them to do whatever their punishment would be. Listen, you can always retract it if it turns out you're wrong, but the idea you're going to do nothing and potentially let other events happen and other teams sign them, that doesn't make any sense. That sounds like the worst of all worlds.
Yeah, totally. So let's move into another story. Our friend MSL put something out saying that he's ready to come back, which interestingly enough, he sort of had, it was still pretty vague. He says he's creating his own team and he's got all the players to do it, so he has his roster, and it's a good mixture of talent and experience. Didn't reveal who the roster was publicly, was still waiting for that, and said basically the usual: if you're interested in contacting us, here's my email. We're happy to represent your organization. Now, of course, this must be terrible for Danish leagues because obviously he was definitely 100% joining Fnatic.
Don't worry, they actually did. This is how utterly shameless these people are, Richard. Even though, as I told you, what I heard along was basically this, right? I basically heard Fnatic tried to contact him. There never even was any communication, and it never happened as a deal. So it's almost like you've taken an idea someone had and said it was happening, right? Not that like they're in communication. It's worse. The cunt did exactly what I knew they would do, Richard, which is once they're trapped, they never just give it up. They can never just take an L. They always have to lie and pretend they were right. So this guy did a follow-up tweet. He did a tweet where, cause it like 9 days later, he's had to himself say, fucking Alex is joining. The Danish Leaks guy did a follow-up tweet to his original tweet where he said Mezzi and MSL were joining. And he said, originally MSL was the plan, but Fnatic decided Alex is a better fit for them. Nonetheless, we are going to see MSL play for another team soon. You can't ever take the L, ever.
No.
Even when you completely out your ass talking, because even if that was accurate, by the way, even if it was the case that he'd heard the first part, what I said, like Fnatic maybe as an idea might be considering MSL. Why isn't that the tweet then? Why isn't the tweet Fnatic considering MSL? Why would the tweet be Fnatic plus Mezzi parentheses and MSL?
And MSL, I know, yeah.
Because here's the thing, guys. I hope people understand I'm not really talking to that guy. I'm talking to you, the viewer. Understand, he went out of his way to give you the sense in his first tweet. It was a real deal that was going to happen and was essentially, it's implied, all parties are agreed. And then he's walked it back to pretend that isn't what he said, but he did say that. So what you're finding out is this person not only doesn't know the scene, they are a liar. And that's the worst part of it. It's one thing if you just have shit sources. That can happen to anyone. But to basically lie afterwards and pretend you got a perfect record, get the fuck out of my face.
I know. Well, I mean, that's what they've done. They've done a little celebratory tick, a green tick, saying, look, we got that one right. We got that one right. I mean, you got the IGL completely wrong and then pivoted to Alex. And it wasn't even your initial report that it was Alex. I think it was Nell that reported that first initially. Right. And then now you've turned around and gone, even though we said it was MSL, here's a narrative about why it isn't. And yeah, we got it right. Brilliant. Perfect. Great leaks count. What's mad as well is that account, when I first was aware of it, had like 177 followers. And what this just tells you is just lying works. If you ever want to just build up an account to about 10,000 followers, it'll be very hard without credibility to get beyond that. But if you just want a 10,000 follower Twitter account, you pretend to be an anonymous insider of any industry, any particular, interest, whatever it is, politics, gaming, stock option, like whatever you want to do. And you just tweet out garbage. You just tweet out things that could be happening. Like, actually, yeah, that's got a possibility to happen, and just tweet them all out as fact, and people will start following you on Twitter because they
I'll give you an example.
So
here's one that this guy made. It's right in the wheelhouse of what we're talking about based on that last conversation. Are you ready for this tweet, right? Like, when I read this, people even in our own chat who followed our shows, they're probably going to think, it's not that bad, is it? It's just a leak. Just listen to how they framed this. Everything about this framing shows how utterly morally corrupt this individual is, right? It says this: according to sources, Astralis are in talks with Hunden, right? Great starter with Twit leak. Sounds interesting, right? This next sentence, the way it is framed, is fucking mental. Are you ready? It's still unclear how far the talks have gone. Sounds like you shouldn't be leaking anything then. No, wait. But Astralis are highly interested in him. Okay. As Zonic might be about to leave. Those three things combined are so stupid, it's unreal. So you have no idea how far talks are going. Who the fuck is your source on this story? 2, but Astralis are highly interested, right? You do know that implies your only source literally is an Astralis, and you're just reading their mind. Thirdly, Zonic might leave. So he might not even leave. In which case, it all is moot. It's literally, what you're saying here is, I think Hunden might join Astralis because I think Nickel Ion probably really likes him. End tweet. But if you put that tweet's nothing. So you have to reframe it as though you actually reveal information. This tweet is garbage. There's nothing in that at all. They even then did a follow-up, right? Where again, it's like, well, fuck it, we're getting more info. Information about a 2-year contract between Astralis and Hunden has come to our knowledge, but still not being confirmed. Like,
I know.
I can't handle it anymore. It's like you want to use like existentialism as a journalistic concept, like, but what can we even know, Richard? I know something, but how much do I know? Like,
how anybody can read the tweets this account puts out and thinks They're a well-connected insider. Now they do great in the tier 2 and tier 3. They might even have a 90% accuracy record down there. For the We Play League teams, which again suggests maybe they know a We Play admin or
some
something.
friends of that, yeah.
Yeah, fine, whatever. But their knowledge of tier 1 is garbage. And they also do the unforgivable thing. They present information as being their own when weeks ago, like say that Puffin CS account, with the Lucky move, they announced Lucky to Astralis at on June the fucking 26th or something, and so I don't know. It's just garbage. It's just garbage. I'll snap if I see it on the front page of Reddit again. People have got to start, spending some time upvoting quality content, that stuff you all claim alike.
Oh, by the way, just to confirm, the actual story, the original one that Alex would be going with Messi to Fnatic was by Nell, which is on his site, like 1pv.fr, which also implies that this motherfucker lied in his tweet because he implied he was giving you that information, and then he had the gall to put a tick when he was explicitly wrong and someone else reported the right story. Why he gets a tick from that, I have no idea. What is that?
Wild, isn't it? But anyway, so I've heard a lot of rumors circulating around about the MSL lineup and the rumors I've heard, which I won't say here because I don't want to potentially ruin any calls that might be coming his way or emails that might be coming his way. But it's some of them are the names you'd probably expect.
I swear, I haven't heard about this one, actually. I haven't asked him. So I'll just say the obvious one would be some of the Hyenas players. It just seems like an obvious connection to make at this point in time, right?
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. The worry I have for MSL is I think it's great he's coming back. As I said, he's a future Hall of Famer IGL. I really like him as a person. I think he's got his quirks as an IGL that have always held him back from true greatness, but he's been incredibly successful over his career. He's got trophies in almost every year he's been active.
Yep.
I think North completely sabotaged him. I don't think his last run in North is representative of who he is as an IGL. That org was just a clusterfuck. So I'm glad he's back. But I'll also just say this is the worst time to be starting a new project. I don't understand what org's going to pick up here, MSL and 4 Danes that haven't done particularly well in recent years. All the cast-offs. I don't understand who's got the money to be picking up 5 teams, as it is right now anyway. And this sort of naivety of, hey, we're one of the smallest markets in World Counterstrike, as Hyenas found out. It's going to be incredibly hard to monetize us, but we are a half-decent team, and who knows, we might get into the top 10 of World CS. Give us a call. The fact that all Plano cannot get a fucking org to pay them what they think they're worth, given the huge marketing potential that you have in Brazil just by virtue of being associated with those players, should tell MSL this is not the time to be looking for this type of opportunity. And if there was a potential move to be slotted in as an IGL with a team that he would eventually get to improve over time and swap players in and out, that was a much better option than this for his career for me. So, but MSL's a perfectionist. I mean, keep in mind, he's been out the scene since North, which that feels like ancient history. And I know he's turned down opportunities since then.
By the way, that's the craziest thing about him is I know the fans all underrated, so they think he has no offers. They don't know, man, the amount of offers MSL's turned down is stupid as fuck. Like for example, when he was in Optic and he was leaving that team and he obviously went to North in the end, he had a bunch of other teams he could have joined after that. But as you say, it's like in his mind, he really was going for but it has to be exactly what I want. And mate, beggars can't be choosers. There's a reason that fucking idiom has lasted the test of time, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's gonna be interesting to see where it ends up. I just don't know who it would be. I mean, I'm looking at all the big orgs that sort of aren't active at the moment. I'm looking at orgs that might want to improve the squad they've got. There's no one that it would make sense for to completely cut a roster to pick up this 5, and there's not really any orgs out there at the moment. I mean, actually, tell a lie. I suppose
if an NA team came back or something, if they wanted a European,
if an NA team sort of did come back, I mean, I would also go so far as to say maybe Evil Geniuses, maybe because I know you've just signed Miku, and I know you've not long signed Obo. I think we can all agree that that team is it's never getting back to what
a
it
walking
was.
team, surely, yeah.
Yeah, and all of those guys have got a bright future in Valorant, no doubt about it. Miku has proven to be a good sign, and Obo's proven to be a good sign. But these, and they're good individual players. But if Evil Geniuses wanted to like get a team that was gonna like put in the work, put in the hours, definitely not be touching Valorant and grinding up to get back into that top 10. I think that's the one org I'd say that like I would probably drop the roster I had to pick this up. That could conceivably do it, and it would make sense. Other than that, I just don't think there's going to be a lot. Maybe Ents as well, I suppose.
Not impossible, I guess.
But I don't know if Ents would want Danes on their book, given how core the But then again, they've gone international now, so who knows? But yeah, I just don't think there's a lot of options out there, really. So we'll have to wait and see. But I wish him the best. I hope it works out. I like it would be tragic if he was fucking stuck in that old Plano world where they're playing under some shit name that they've made up themselves for fucking months. We'll wait and see. All right, Fnatic, bit of a double header here. We already talked about the prospective move of Alex and Mezzi joining Fnatic. But ahead of that, there was an interview with Khan, obviously legendary former 1.6 player, legend at Fnatic, the chief gaming officer at Fnatic, someone who's very hands-on. He did an interview with HLTV where he was talking about, the rebuild of the CSGO team. Fnatic had fallen to 60th in the world prior to the announcement of this pickup, which that is mind-blowing to me, that Fnatic ever got that low. Now with JW on the bench and Golden also sort of just disappeared into the ether, they needed to replace an IGL and bring somebody in. So they've announced that they're going with the two UK guys, Alex and Mezzi. But what I thought was interesting was Khan talked a lot about how we're a LAN team. We're always a LAN team. Again, I don't think that ever it can be used as an excuse for plummeting from being a top 10 team in the world to 60th in the world. The fact that you haven't been playing LAN. You couldn't even get to the last LAN. So, who fucking knows? So I'm not vibing with that at all. But he also said that as long as CS is there, we want to be a top contender. So with that quote in mind, Duncan, Alex and Mezzi being added to the books, is that going to make Fnatic a top contender as Khan wants them to be?
Thing is, I'm very strict with how I use terms like contender, like dark. I don't just give them out willy-nilly where you get like fucking... Like, I hate... one of my pet peeves is when people go, everyone in the top 10 can beat each other. It's like the most meaningless statement of all time, because unless you mean equally, you've already fucked up the context of your own quote, haven't you? Which is what they tend to mean stupidly. What they really mean is it's not impossible that number 10 could beat number 1 in 1 out of 10 games, which isn't a very meaningful statement when you unpack it. But my point is this. Yeah. If he says contender... I'm looking in that scenario like you've got to be a top 5 team in the world. In fact, you can even sometimes be the 5th or 4th team, and if you're unlucky, not be a contender. It depends how the scene is at the time. So, mate, I don't know that this move can get you to number 5 in the world. That seems like a fucking reach. With that said, I think if you look at the pieces you've got, they're obviously still a little bit short-handed AWPing-wise, but aside from that, I do think they've got a good base to the team. Like, I think Broline and Crims are still very good players. Goes out saying, I thought Mezzi and Alex were actually very legit in Cloud9. So I think those pieces alone, here's the thing, you could be like, maybe you could be a top 10 team. Maybe you'll be on the out. I would see probably like the 13th best team. Be number 5 in the world and be a LAN team? I don't know about that, because there's the other thing to add in. Even if we take Khan at face value, so you had a LAN team, Mezzi and fucking Jaquinho haven't got loads of LAN experience, mate. He's starting over on that one, if anything. So, I think that's just like optimism on his part. Like I said, I'd say they'd be like the 13th best team in the world. I think, which is still an upgrade. It's still worth doing. If you had an AWP, we could start talking. But with the pieces they've got now, I think probably like 13th best.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because what I'll say is I don't really know what to make of Alex after Cloud9, because I don't think he was given a particularly that whole project was just a disaster in retrospect.
It was a poison chalice.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, and he clearly had a lot of influence over it, and they were headed in the right direction. Remember, if they were one round away from beating Na'Vi at that ESL Pro League, and if they'd beat Na'Vi, they would have qualified through the groups.
Yes.
And if they qualified through the groups, they would have been kept on at Cloud9. So, crazy to think, like how that sort of changes sort of the entire CS landscape. But I think overall, in terms of what I saw, the development of the players and strategically, they were getting better and better every time they were playing. And I think there was, you could look at Alex there and go, okay, he's been a moderate success. But the problem you've got here is he's essentially coming in and he's going to be working it's a much stranger setup, in my opinion, to the roster he's trying to build here, having joined. I mean, you've got forget the language thing. All the boys speak English. It's not going to be an issue. But, you've got a wily old veteran in the form of Crims. They can be tricky sometimes to work with if you come in and you've got your own ideas. I know from the Golden era, the first one, some of the boys didn't respect Golden's ideas. They were like, listen, we were winning tournaments before you were even in our academy team. The way we do things works, even though the way they were doing things hadn't worked for a while. And there was a little bit of hubris on their part when they kicked Golden out. He got them back to winning ways, and he wasn't particularly well rewarded. Equally, sometimes you can leverage their experience to help everyone out. They could be the cool head. They obviously understand LAN. They understand pressure, and probably no one better for that than Crims. In Brolin, he's got one of the best young players in World Counterstrike. Yeah, exactly. He's going to welcome working with Brolin. And Brolin's a little bit further ahead of like Mezzi's development. Mezzi comes with Alex. He's worked with him at Cloud9. In terms of the best value for money and the guy that improved from where they were, Mezzi was the most improved player on that Cloud9 roster and proved that, he could hang at tier 1 Counter-Strike, which was something we were all wondering if he could do. And he did it well. Chiquinho, as I say, if he's going to stay on the AWP, which it looks like he will, a lot of people seem to rate him far more highly than I do. So maybe
I saw him play.
Yeah, I mean, but he's also still relatively young, as you said, relatively inexperienced. Maybe there's something Alex can impart on him. But I do think this is a really weird situation. I mean, keep in mind as well, JW's on the bench. I don't think you've seen the end of him. I know he's talking about going to Valorant. I think there might be one last hurrah from JW.
That's the weird part, isn't it? Is like that's the part I find weirdest actually about this move. Is remember with JW's tenure, if you really don't actually plan on using him at all, you'd actually consider just releasing the guy now and just say, look, you can go wherever you want at this point. Like we're not going to get a big buyout for you probably, so just leave if you want, right? The fact that you keep him benched, like I don't get the timing of this move, Richard. Like unless they already spoke to Alex, I'd have let him have that team and say, look, we were thinking about benching JW, but do you want to have like one last crack at it?
Yeah, makes sense, right?
Yeah, that would have made more sense to me. And then you bench him if it doesn't work, because as we say, like AWP is the obvious position they're sort of missing, aren't they?
Yeah, well, look, I'll just add. I know obviously Fnatic is a UK org, but their identity's been Swedish for a long period of time. I mean, I'll just say this, and I said it last week. I'll repeat it again. Smooya is a better AWPer than Chiquinho by a country mile.
Oh, that would go without saying, yeah.
Right, and I know he's had his behavioural problems. Smooya remains too good for Movistar riders, and I don't know. I feel like he's done a lot of maturing, but I also think Alex is a good IGL, somebody in the sense of taking people that have interesting personalities, let's say, and kind of like, calming them down, chilling them out. I think he seems to have a track record for that. Obviously, he did similar things over in Vitality. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe, but the AWP is the question for me. Maybe Chiquinho goes on to be brilliant. Who knows? But I'm not feeling it. And I think, much like you, I don't think they have all of the pieces yet to be knocking on the door for a top 10. I honestly do think, though, with a lot of the moves and all the stuff that's going on, and how disappointing some rosters have been and how some people are dropping off, I think if you threw Smooya into the mix, could see them creeping into the top 10 currently, for sure. I actually do think that. So maybe that's controversial. I guess we'll wait and see.
I'd also even say, by the way, this is how far they've dropped. They're at the position now where even if you don't end up keeping Smoothie more than 3 months, it's probably in both parties' mutual interest to try. Like, again, beggars can't be choosers. Who else are you getting right now? What other sick offers are coming down the line? Again, unless you're going to be the team that now, because you're international, dares to gamble on a Guardian or a Kenny S or something, who the fuck are you getting?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I feel like, I don't think you go and you wouldn't pick up a Guardian for this project. You wouldn't pick up an Oscar for this project. This has to be something that Fnatic are doing with a long-term view for steady improvement. I mean, they only can improve. They can't go lower in the world rankings than where they are now. But if you want to take a player who's still young, got a lot of good years ahead of him, Smoothie is your guy. Like I definitely agree. I'd roll the dice on it personally. I know it's not fair on Chiquinho, and maybe you do have to give him a chance to see what he's gonna do. But yeah, we'll wait and see. Now the other big story was Big. They had a move that had kind of been floated for a while. There was a lot of talk about Xantares leaving Big. And maybe going to join a Turkish super team, which we obviously haven't. We've never seen a true Turkish super team. Space Soldiers were the guys that got as close to that as possible. And they announced the replacement that I think probably caught a few people off guard because they announced Gade as the replacement for him. Obviously, Gade is Danish, but he does speak German. And he was another one of those refugees, if you like, from when North collapsed. Now, we'll get into Gade in just a moment, but let's just talk about this Xantares move. It's a bit of a strange one that's been floated for a while. Xantares himself sort of said he wanted to try like some new things. He said that he'd achieved a lot of big and was super proud of what he achieved there. They'd got to #1 in the world. He'd been the #1 player on that roster in terms of statistical output, but he was ready for a new challenge, and that's all fair. I think when we moved to the online era, Xantares was the player I thought that was going to fucking love it. Because obviously we all know the meme, like Lantares, it's all been said. I honestly thought that he would be the guy that would flourish, but it never really seemed to happen. I mean, Big are kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde team. They have a tendency to just upset people's runs in tournaments. And if you look at Xantares' stats, they're decent. But they're not like mad star player stats. In fact, you would confer that label still on Tabson, who obviously is the guy that's calling all the shots over at Big now. And I would say as well, in terms of impact, who dictates if Big win a game or not is Searson. It's not Xantares at all, really. You just expect, he'll occasionally have that one map where he pops off. So I don't know if that's that he's not playing well or if he's a bit dissatisfied or, he's whatever, but I don't think Xantares has really been at the top of his game for a while, and probably is a good move. But Gade coming in, not a like-for-like replacement by any stretch of the imagination. So, what do you make of a Big without Xantares? Are they better off?
I don't think they can be better off because here's the thing. Xantares was a good player, but I have to say, from watching him in the online era, because obviously his team at one point was #1 in the world. They were in Flashpoint 2 and they were a team that has potentially chances to win that tournament. I have to say, it makes perfect sense to me now where he was never as good online as he was online. Because I tell you what, mate, he's just not that smart a player. Like, he really is the player. This is the problem Scream had in his career, if people understand. Yep. When people know they have amazing aim, the worst mistake they can make is just 24/7 play around having amazing aim, because that's supposed to be like something that puts you over the top as well as being really well rounded and just makes you unbeatable. If you only play around having amazing aim, first of all, you become predictable as to what you're going to do, and secondly, that you will take scenarios. So I saw, for example, he would get into like scenarios. If he was in a clutch, he was the guy who would just go out and take a duel and go and try and headshot the guy. It's like, mate, you can do that against tier 2 and tier 3. Against tier 1, that guy has just good aim as you. Like, you can't do that against Nico. He's going to play the angles correctly and have as good aim as you, if not better, and use experience against you. If you just go out like a moron that does work against tier 3 and just shoot him in the head, yeah, like, you win the round, but you're not actually playing correct Counter-Strike. And the problem I had was this. Big was a team that, by definition, wanted to play textbook Counter-Strike. They want to play their German style. It was like the stereotype. They want to play by the numbers, and they want to play the correct situations, use information, use the bomb, use your position. Don't just use your aim. Like, the other players in the team weren't doing that. So to me, I always thought there was sort of a stylistic mismatch with them. And I noticed that basically once you got up the rankings, this is why I agree with what you said about Sirison. Once you got up the rankings to like top 10 opponents, top 5, Xantares' impact was dropping like a motherfucker. He was just becoming an average player. If you were against tier 2, like I say, he would farm him and he would look like the MVP. So I agree. He never quite, in my opinion, lived up to the billing. I even suspect this is part of why he's probably leaving. I think he probably realised I had my best time in the team. I will say the part that's shocking to me is, even though I know Big is not a team that had a lot of money to pay people in terms of salary, I hope they've got a real org set up for this Turkish org, because people know the stories about space soldiers. They were getting paid a shockingly low amount of money. It's the whole reason why back in the day I always used to say that the HLTV Serbian fucking god emperor who has to tell everyone who the best player is. I always used to think, does this guy even know the scene? Because even he used to be like, why hasn't fucking Roxic joined up with space soldiers? Because he probably just want €100 a month salary, you fucking moron. Like, is that even a question? Like, to actually ask that from within the industry is mad embarrassing, mate. Like, it's a self-own on a level that's mental. That would be like when Leicester won the Premier League going, why doesn't Ronaldo just join them? It's like, because of every factor about how the industry works. So yeah, basically my problem is I sort of competitively get why he might leave Big, but I can't see how for either party it's actually better. Like, I don't think his super team in Turkey ever is as good as Big was. And quite frankly, I can't see how Gade is going to do better for Big than Xantares did. Because here's the thing. Gade might end up being, if he can really speak German, and it seems like he's a bit of a soldier guy, which is just what he's told. I haven't heard anything negative from teammates. I'm assuming he's probably going to do his job, but he's not as skilled as Xantares was. Xantares was a very good player, you have to be real. So I think it's a bad move all around for everyone, but I get why they might do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, we'll just talk a little bit about that team, and then we'll wrap up the Gade stuff here first. I mean, for me, I just think it's such an outrageous downgrade, and I understand Big's hands are tied, because it's like, look, Searson and Keto were anomalies. There was fuck all talent in the German scene. I mean, like, looking for German-speaking talent, especially ones that don't come with any baggage, because there's still a bunch of scumbags from back in like 2015 who were fixing matches and doing all sorts of shit, and actually just from recent events, you know who the fuck I'm talking about. Trying to find someone that's actually skilled and fucking clean is impossible in the German scene. So who can you look to? Well, fortunately, you have got an experienced player from Denmark who played on some top Danish teams who can speak German. Great news. Bad news is he is nowhere near a like-for-like replacement for what you've got going out. And it's a massive downgrade in firepower overall. And he's 26. And I know I keep bringing up age, and you shouldn't in CS, because you can play forever and be amazing. It's not like they get whatever the fuck. But I don't know. I think this is like a huge fucking downgrade, and unless they can figure out some system that somehow plays to all of Gade's strengths and doesn't detract from anyone else's, and somehow Keto is finally gonna step into the space that Xantares leaves and deliver on the promise people keep telling me he has. I think this is like just bad news for Big, unfortunately. They're a team I like. They're an org I like. They're players I like. But they are just so dependent on Searson and Tabson popping off to essentially drag them through series right now that I don't think Gade is going to be anything other than more baggage to drag, kicking and screaming, unfortunately. Now, here's what I will say. I don't know about you, but if this Turkish super team does happen and is the core of Woxic, Xantares, and Calix, I'm pretty excited by that, honestly.
I think watching for sure.
Yeah, I think all of those guys, were unfortunately held back, not by talent, Well, first of all, by a refusal to essentially have the best potential Turkish roster when they were in Space Soldiers. But that organised, so again, they did a bit of a classic French thing there. And, well, we can never play with each other. Why the fuck not? Because we are not alike. Well, just sort it out. Just keep it professional. Just do your fucking job and don't talk to each other off the server. You know that's a possibility, right? No, not in Counterstrike, evidently. So but Space Soldiers mistreated all of those players and didn't realize what they had. They had a really good coach, really good boots on the ground manager with them. A really good, well, not a really good team, but a very solid international team that was always capable of taking big scalps. And it just, they just fucking abused them. They just didn't pay them the money that they deserved. They didn't look after their needs, and eventually they just pissed it all away. If this team can work, I mean, Calix was the one sort of standout at that old Envy lineup. I thought he looked really good. Zantares, obviously, if he's motivated and gets back to what he is, I've been hearing rumors he's going to be the leader of this team. Man alive.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully that's not true. Don't do that, guys. And obviously, Woxic in Cloud9. I'll just say this because there's been a bit of distance and time now. Woxic was a huge reason Cloud9 failed.
Of course.
Woxic clearly wasn't putting the work in and clearly wasn't listening to the players around him. He would go and make some just comedically bad decisions in the games I watched. I watched every Cloud9 game that Woxic played, and he didn't improve from map to map. And there were a number of maps. Keep in mind as well, when Cloud9 lost, it was always 16-14s, or they'd lose in overtime, and they would lose to Pistols. And Woxic was a huge fucking reason they would, because he would go aggressive with an AWP straight into an eco, get his head banged off by a P250, and then give them an AWP and a chance to win the round. And he did it particularly on Nuke. His reading situationally of when to be aggressive and when to play passive and hold angles was really, really bad for a tier 1 AWPer. Now, I said, obviously, Woxic's strengths at LAN because he goes aggressive in a setting where everyone else plays more conservative. So maybe that almost peanut-brained approach to it can fucking work. But I'll just say this, hopefully we get past all the COVID stuff and we get to see this team at a LAN, because they're going to be massively hindered again, just by virtue of geography, potentially poor internet. That was another factor. I will say that for Woxic. He was playing on 90 ping and stuff. It's not ideal in an online era. So yeah, this has to be a team that's got a view going to LAN. But if they do, I think one to watch for me, for sure. Especially
here's the thing. I could see a world where if they actually make the lineup work, here's the thing, even if they say Zantares is agile, I assume they're just going to play a very loose style, let the boys frag out. If you do that, you could maybe be like what that Tyloo squad was, where it was exciting team, they had high skill level. Yep. The style's a bit one-dimensional, but you just hope that they have that one day where they just pop off. Because by the way, what you're saying about Woxic makes perfect sense. Because put it this way, when he was in Mouse Sports and they were still really good and we were on LAN, all the stories were like that, Richard, but they all had a funny punchline, because at the end he got the kill and at the end he won the round. They would all be he just, the coach sort of goes, well, look, watch, you're getting a bit aggressive there on that peak, aren't you? And you go bro, I know what I fucking do, watch. That's a sick story if you then kill the guy and win the round. If you then just go, watch this, and then fucking run in and get that just becomes a really shit story that no one should ever tell. And so sadly, I could totally believe if he was checked out, he hadn't been in good form, and he's on 90 ping. I just imagine, unfortunately, his head was never in that project properly.
Yeah. Now, look, just before, because, again, I think there's a couple of other things we'll just briefly touch on, and then we're going to go to viewer questions. Nice short episode, I reckon. Just before we do, though, here's one thing I do want to do. I've been meaning to do it on the show for the last few episodes, but it's just been action-packed. So I want to talk about the We Play Academy League. And,
all right.
Not the results. I don't want to get into the ins and outs of all of that. I just want to talk about the initiative and how I hope that people are going to go and support it, because it's exactly what we need right now. It's a weird world, because we went from being told the prescribed wisdom there was no value in having an academy team because there was nowhere they could play for integrity reasons. We talked about Lucky to Astralis last week, mate, so I don't know why you're spamming that. they couldn't play anywhere for integrity reasons, because obviously if you have your academy team playing potentially against you at a tournament, well, the academy team takes a dive, doesn't it? Right? Because you want your better players to fucking go through and win the competition. So loads of people got rid of them. I think Valve had even sort of said as well, like, if there was any mutual overlapping interests between teams at the major, they wouldn't be able to attend. And so people did cut them. I mean, hilariously, if you think about North and their academy side, and you look at the players they had, that probably could have assembled a much better roster than what the main one was if they'd kept a hold of some of that talent, but which also just shows what a comedically bad org it was. But anyway, there hasn't been anywhere worth competing for these academy teams, or this idea that, yes, let's have academy side. So I got wind of that WePlay was setting up this academy league ahead of schedule. I think they'd even reached out and somewhat presumptively messaged me saying, hey, if you want, we'll come on by the numbers and tell you all about the league. And I'm a cunt, aren't I? So I obviously,
yeah, it ain't happening. So forget that.
Yeah, I'm
yourself on this show. Come on.
Yeah, I'm a cunt. So when people suggest things like that and are over familiar in a sense,
I hate it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but I understand why they're doing it, and the fact they thought of us could be construed as a good thing. So I'm trying
they seem pretty legit, the people behind the scenes.
Yeah.
I'll say that, but that is mad presumptuous. Like, know your fucking role.
Yeah, exactly. So whatever. But, so when I saw all these orgs picking up, academy sides again, Big Academy, Young Ninjas, Astralis Talent, it was all with a view of sort of competing in this league. They'd been told, this league's going to come and it's going to be prize money. And I think the tournament has been fantastically handled. It's been incredibly smooth. It's had some great games. You are looking at some of the future talent as well, like, guys like Monzi, however you pronounce it, in Navi Junior, and obviously like the Astralis talent teams look pretty good as well. And, so this has been it's been a really good initiative. And I'll also just add, I've watched some of the games. The production has been fucking god tier for what this league should be. And I'll also add, ESL, I hope you're paying attention since as you watch the show. No, I don't want a copy of Monopoly. Thank you very much. But please, will you let Hugo and Harry off the fucking leash in your broadcast? Because when they have the room to just commentate their natural style, they are fucking hilarious, right? They are fucking hilarious and really entertaining. But for whatever reason, when they do ESL events, they can't fully express themselves. I don't know why. I don't know why the feedback is rein yourself in. But Hugo and Harry, some of their overall performance, their commentary performance, in sync with the production over at these WePlay events has been fucking brilliant. It's actually been some of the best and funniest casted Counterstrike this year, and hardly's anyone seen it. And they've done some mad stuff. They've had Harry riding a giant fucking chicken, literally fully looks like him as well.
It's all augmented reality shit. People don't know. It looks really, it's super high quality though.
Like PGL started that, and then Star Ladder did it for a bit as well. This is the natural evolution. What WePlay have done is really impressive, considering as well, this is just the proof of concept first season. They've done a lot of stuff. I'm not pissing on them just to be cruel, but they've done a lot of stuff that Flashpoint were promising to do and didn't deliver on. So really impressed with the WePlay League and the quality of the games and the quality of the casting, the quality of the production. And I hope people are going to support it, because right now the scene is struggling. We all know it's very hard for young talent to break into, because more and more people are withdrawing and not sponsoring teams. Having academy sides is pretty much the lifeblood if you're a young player who can't break into tier 1. And so having a league dedicated to it, and a high quality one that people will watch, is really, really good for the scene overall. I don't know how much of it you've watched and what your thoughts are about it.
Right, I barely watched any of it because I just don't really give a fuck. But I would just say this, right? As in terms of the premise, I think it's fantastic. Like as I've said previously, we even said it on this show. One of the few areas I actually legit do feel sorry for Nyholm in is he was actually way ahead of the game on having a farm team. He just got fucked out of the system because he weren't allowed it in the scene. So essentially, all that effort that they put into making those teams now could have been paying mad rewards, as you say, with players that came through Mad Lions and other squads. Obviously, Fnatic themselves was a team with Golden that they might and the coach that they got to benefit from what they had in their academy squad. So I thought it was always needed in the scene, especially in the era of insane buyouts and ridiculous salaries where you want to get on the ground early. If people don't know, it's exactly how European soccer football literally developed their youth system, is they realised instead of everyone having a bidding war over this amazing 18-year-old Brazilian player, why don't you just try and sign him when he's 12, a year before everyone else notices he's good, and then if he doesn't make it, who gives a fuck? You give him a terrible contract anyway. If he does make it, bump him out of a nice contract, get him in the youth squad, either sell him for money, make all your money back, or he's a mega player, like could literally be Messi. Obviously, that's what, if people don't know, Barcelona literally did with Messi, because he's obviously not Brazilian, right? So my angle is, you do need it in the space. The problem always was, even if you have a league, who the fuck's going to watch it? This is where you can't fucking win against dumbass idiots. So I think we talked about it on the last episode, maybe, but like, or maybe it was a different show I'm thinking of. I know that Sticko from CSPPA was going, yeah, I don't know if this tournament should be taking place during the player break. They're like tier 7 million players, for fuck's sake. This is exactly when it should be taking place. The perfect time to have this league with players that otherwise none of us would watch is when there is no other Counterstrike to watch. Because guess what? I have watched a couple of games for the Monacy guy, as you're saying, because everyone's been saying how insane his talents are. I even watched one just because I thought how hilarious this is. If people don't know, here's one piece of information I can give you analytically from the We Play Academy League. Astralis Talent, which is the name of their academy team, might be the most ironically named team of all of them. And Astralis the org are such absolute clown shoes that at a time when they're about to lose most of their premier talent and their entire theme of their org is we built this talent and it's us that made them that good. The idea your academy team is the second worst in the entire fucking league, behind the likes of Mouse Sports, Big, Fnatic, Virtus.pro. Like, the idea these people have better academy squads than you destroys your entire mythos as a fucking org, you morons. So, like, that's hilarious in itself. Like, they're basically utter garbage. If people don't know, like, they finished their minus 36 after they played all the initial games. That's how good this fucking team is on rounds 1. They won 4 games out of 15. Like, give me a break. So, in terms of the league, I think it's a great premise. I hope they continue to do it. I hope it actually can become somewhere where people like the Monacy guy, maybe the lucky guy in a future team could have made their names before you get to see them. I'll also point out, as you said as well, as a disclaimer, they did actually ask me to work this event. I would have done it, actually. It's just unfortunately, it was so quick on the heels of that CIS RMR. Mate, I'm not doing the old circuit where I just work event after event. Like, I have to sort of have a bit of decompression time. I have to mentally build up to an event. I have to get my other work done. So it just wasn't the right time for it. But I even told them I'd potentially consider doing this in the future. Normally, I'm not the guy who would do like a tier 3 event, because I normally, like, the games have to be good to get me into them. But I do think this is important for the scene. So it's one of the rare things I'll still do, because I think it's actually valiant. I even think, for example, normally my take, because I only ever did tier 1 lands, is I don't even want to know who you are if you're the 30th best team, because I want you to show me at the first tier 1 land you go to. But in the modern world, where I see how feckless all these GMs are, I actually think it would be a value for someone like me to be able to say it in a video. And I saw this guy playing the We Play League, and actually maybe he could be a North player if it'd be in the past, the Fnatic. It'd be nice if I actually knew some of the names to throw in the mix, because at the moment, these fucking cunts need all the help they can get, don't they?
Yeah, and on that point with the CSPPA, like, I'm glad you brought that up, because it is utterly ridiculous. Like, one of the things that I always despise from entities in esports is any entity that wants to exert authority over you without providing anything to you in exchange for it is not a serious, and it should be immediately
because think about it, CSPPA essentially has, and their actions showed, we only care about tier 1, and now they're going to turn around and go, excuse me, tier 4 player who I didn't even know existed, don't play during those weeks, because that's when I don't play, which is like,
It also
What?
implies, by the way, though, that these guys are like active
Yeah.
members by virtue of being
Course.
contracted to the orgs. Like, put it this way, I know firsthand the CSPPA does fuck all, and I mean literally
Course.
fuck all for any player like below a certain point. Some of them have even reached out and asked for help, and I've seen evidence of this and just been ignored.
Yep.
You know, some people who are like, please help me look at this contract. No, you have to suck a dick. You're tier 5. You know, so the whole point with the CSPPA was that it says in its mission statement it is open to all, and it will support anybody that is, by definition, a professional Counter-Strike player at any level in the space. Unfortunately, in practice, it doesn't do that. So to then make demands of players you offer no appreciable service to is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And also, as well, the idea, as you said, that those players who are clamoring for exposure and need to do it in the best period, right, for that, so they can establish themselves and, you know, have their own brand potential, get opportunities for employment. The CSPPA is actively going to tell you, well, our pros are on the pros that we do serve are on a break during that time. So fuck you. How are you even acting in their interests at that
Gross,
point?
isn't it?
That is
Yeah.
counter to their interest.
Giving them a chance to earn money and exposure.
Yeah. So, you know, the CSPPA continues, unfortunately, to be the greatest disappointment in Counter-Strike probably in the last 5 years, you know, which is, I don't even know what that list looks like, frankly. Probably a long one. But anyway, go and support the We Play League.
Yes.
I haven't been sponsored to say that or anything like that. I'm not hankering for a job with them. As I said, they did say, hey, we'll come on your show, and I just ignored that. And that's ridiculous.
By the way, I definitely also agree with the production part.
Definitely
Like,
support.
not just the part behind this on the like in the game, dude. The studio setups look fucking amazing. Like I saw the one they did before this, where they were doing like an RMR or something, I think, where they were using the studio for it, and they had like a fucking like noir theme or some shit. It looked amazing. Like the actual effort they're putting in looks legit. It's one of the reasons why I told you I was thinking of doing the event. I was told like, oh, the behind the scenes stuff super legit. They'll take care of you. They're mega set up, like totally professional. So I like that aspect. Obviously, I want more TOs to be like that if possible.
Yeah, and hopefully we do get a second season, a second series, like Alan Partridge.
I knew you were going for that reference as soon as you said it. I know. I just want to see Banks going. Look, Red Eye. Can I please have any job in East, but not just a second season of We Play?
Anyway, I think that'll do it. Look, I know PTR's retired today. I might save that for the next episode because I know with everything.
Lay up that one, doesn't it? Come on, mate.
Well, look, Dennis is out of Sprout as well. I feel like there's a gold mine there. I actually messaged him as well to say good luck with what he does next because one of the we've banged on Dennis for years on this show, but what you don't understand is he loves the show, he likes us, and he's a fucking sound guy.
I know.
Yeah, I know he's just another player who gets it. That's all part of the entertainment, you know, and everything that we do. So, all right, fuck it, we're there already. I'll say Dennis out of Sprout. Obviously, he's been there for a long time. 4 fucking years, by the way. I didn't even know that Sprout team had been in.
If you think about it, it's been a long time now. He was in that team, as far as I can tell. It's probably like the same length of time as in Mousespot, maybe longer. Yeah.
One of the things I'll also add is Dennis is quite a remarkable player in the sense that he achieved meme status even to having his own subreddit, the Dennis, where the sort of joke is that he's the greatest CS player to have ever lived. And anyone who says otherwise is there's loads of bad players that don't get that. And yet Dennis did it while being a bit opaque. He never did a lot of media, did he? You know, you can't think of like any interviews or like legendary moments after a game from him. It was just that that Dennis and Spiddy combo was so fucking memeable back in the day of Nico Sports that actually, you know, we ended up with this. So
what I'm going to say is, because it's similar to the Hunden one where they said Hunden was gone. When your own fans can only enjoy your play by leaning into how shit you are, that's also not that great. Actually, a great thing. I know it sounds great for marketing, but like it is almost like a double diss. It's like your own fans are like, it's hilarious that he's shit. All right.
I know.
I agree as well. What I never got is this. Half of the meme was that obviously he's just not even an interesting player, is he? Just an okay player. Because like the guy's personality was fucking lettuce. Like there was just nothing there, mate. Like there's nothing offensive about it. It's just lettuce, isn't it? Like whatever, you know.
Yeah, it's great in a sandwich.
Tastes like water, doesn't it? Just enjoy. There you go, fill in. Whatever.
Great in this, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, like, so the thing is as well, like, he's not like that privately. You know, he's like a pretty interesting dude to talk to. So it's just weird. It's just one of those things. But it is the end of an era. Him and Spiddy have obviously played together for a long time. I mean, you're not going to have any documentaries made about them probably, but they are one of the greatest Counterstrike global offensive duos of all time. Thorin.
This is what I am. I actually would, unironically, Richard, go through all those years where he was asking me in bars, like, how do I improve? Like, why are you calling me shit? Well, like, because I have eyes, you daft cunt. What do you think? Do you think I invented? Is this a conspiracy? Do I control the Matrix and make the bullets miss? So the idea, right, he's going to be all in that. And I'm like, listen, look, I'll tell you your shit, but I'm not going to wait. I'm not fucking Mr. Miyagi. I'm not going to teach you how to be good at the game, you can't. Like, there's already people who can take your spot. So the idea, I'm going to ignore that. But I would actually, unironically, if I had the budget tomorrow, I would rock up. Not tell them it's a mockumentary, but I would make a mockumentary about Dennis and Spiddy, and I'd pretend like it was legit, like they had an amazing career. Like, what was the first
interview Forrest to Get Right and go like, that was the duo we always aspired to be, things like that. Oh, you could Spinal Tap into the fucking max, like, oh yeah,
amazing, wouldn't it? I'd love that shit.
See, this is what I mean. I don't know why people just don't write us a blank check to make content like this, because I'd literally do that, by the way. Like, and that would be straight fire. I mean, keep in mind, on my own money, remember that me and Sam did at one point hire a witch to cast the spell on Freiburg, right? Which is especially hilarious if you think about it, because if magic was real, I've just subverted, much like Hunden, an entire tournament's competitive integrity by turning Freiburg into the king of the banana. But that's like a documentary. If you go watch it on our YouTube channel, it's called "Do You Believe in Magic?" And this is the type of content I'd just make shit like this all the time, hiring witches to make players good and stuff. But people apparently want to pay like just other companies to make dog shit. That same voiceover guy. And this was a must-win game. Tempers started to boil over. I've seen this content a million times. Like, you're not even taking the real shit. You're taking the shit that's safe, but shows they have human emotion. Show me that. And all the real crazy shit that we all know goes on. You don't show me any of that. And then you say it's authentic. We're a fly on the wall. But no, it's just safe corporate content garbage. Give me and Duncan the check, and we'll get you some real shit, some absolute straight fire. And also, just for PTR, legendary guy. Yeah, I think it's the time. But I mean, I will add, I think you went out on a relative high. I know you're fucking, mate, you're just fucking a contact high.
It's been the time for about the last 7 years. What are you talking about? Dude, the one good game everyone remembers against fucking LDLC at the MLG X Games Aspen was in January of 2015. It's fucking the summer of 2021. This guy is ridiculous. That would be like if fucking Bo Jackson, it turned out, was still playing now in the CFL. He goes, you know what, I'm done with American football. Like, were you even playing for the last 20, 30 years? What? Here's the problem. I know
you have just compared PTR to Bo Jackson, by the way.
That's a fucking upgrade if I know.
Yeah, exactly.
No, the problem I have is just these ones. Well, listen, it's all totally correct. Like, he has technically just decided he's leaving. It's just that it makes it seem like it has a fanfare. It doesn't really elicit, like it's like whatever. Okay, see ya.
I'll say this. I think like the timing. The reason I'm saying the timing is right, and it's the time, is because he has gone out.
2015 anymore. Yeah, no.
Well, yeah, that and he has gone out on a relative high because obviously, no, he has. He got to the RMR. He got to the RMR.
Right, I see what you mean. Okay, fair.
That bad news Bears team, they were meant
I guess
to be
everything is relative. That is a high. Yeah, I guess sure.
They had some decent. They had some decent performances there as well, and PTR had some decent performances as well. You can just saying, it's all relative, mate. It's all relative. It's all relative. So he's a super nice guy. I know him. I know his family. And he's off to be a professional poker player, which also feels like a throwback. I remember when a lot of people like Manja Capra and stuff did that, didn't they? But there's a name you haven't heard for a while. But yeah, wish him all the best. Hope to see him in Vegas, maybe when he's playing at some high stakes table, and we can all go and get fucked up, because he is one of the soundest lads you'll ever meet. behind the scenes. And not that people are going to appreciate this. I was living with him. So it was just before all the 2016 elections. We were living together, right? And I'll tell you this, right? Pete obviously is a stoner. I don't think I'm revealing any talking out to school with that. He does love a good smoke, right? And so a lot of what he says, I was always just dismissed as like, stoner ravings. But I remember me and him, we watched the Republican Party debates before Trump was the nominee.
And he said Trump would win, I'm guessing.
He said Trump was going to win the whole election, like before he'd even got the nomination. When the prescribed political wisdom was,
people say he's never even going to get the nomination.
They'll all gang up on him eventually. He'll be Ruby or it'll be someone, like that. And fucking there he was with his bong, and he was like, "Yeah, Trump's going to win the whole election." I was like, "Fuck off, you daft cunt! Like, you don't know nothing, Jon Snow." And he was right.
That also is one of the most ridiculous setups, though, to have that just go. You'd probably fucking be president or something. It's like, whatever, you daft. Order the pizza. Shut up.
So yeah,
what? Fucking Dennis is a hell of a player too. You've had enough. Pass that. Give that back.
Yeah, we need an intervention. Anyway, there you go. There's all the stories and blah blah blah. It's time to do viewer questions. If you donate $50 or more, we'll answer any question about anything. Provided it's within our powers to answer it. And we've also noticed half the time it's not even a question. People just send us funny musings, which we enjoy. So first up, first sock. How would old cash fare as a viewing experience in today's meta with the economy being the way it was if it was put into the map pool right now? So I was thinking about this the other day, actually, about old cash. And I mean, listen, new cash too, but certainly old cash. And I think what you would end up with, it would just be like Inferno in the sense that it would be like really OP T-side because the CTs have to get so much utility and stagger smokes and everything. And, retakes, you've got to have flashbangs. And so it would just play out probably a lot like Inferno in that you would have these very heavily steeped T sides. And if you could get 6 rounds on a CT side, you were probably going to win. And you would probably see a lot of overtimes. And apparently that would make it good. If one side was ridiculously imbalanced because of the need for utility on one side, and one side having all the inherent advantages in the game, people seem to like that. So whatever. But yeah, I think it would play out like Inferno. I will say now, I think the map pool would be greatly improved if you brought cash back, probably in place of Vertigo, for me, and it would be a welcome addition. I'd actually like to see it, even though it would play out like Inferno. You have to think Valve are going to fix the economy at some point. You have to.
Yes, I agree. Unfortunately, it's just like the whole thing with the fucking org. You just never know when. It could be in a month, it could be in a year. That's the thing, you never know with Valve. Basically, I sort of agree. Like, put it this way, I was never a hater on cash. I actually wasn't somebody who was like eager to have it removed.
It grew on me, yeah.
I think it has a space in the meta most of the time. It's such a different map. My problem is this. For me, I actually agree with the Inferno ticks. I always thought cash was a fairly even map, actually. It just depended on how good the team was, basically, whether it was T-sided or not. I think it would be ridiculously T-sided because one of the problems with that map competitively is certain spots, CT middle, for example, are fucking really hard to play at the professional level. So the idea you'd play like that in the current economy, I think it'd be a nightmare, mate. I think it would be a really, really hard map to play, and I think the pick rate wouldn't be very high, unfortunately. So, I do feel as though the economy would fuck it at the moment. I do like it as a map, though. If they can get rid of the economy problems, bring it back, I would like to play it again.
Yeah, yep, I agree with that for sure. Right, Zumba says, what is the worst way a player has found out they were traded? So I'm trying to think.
I mean, an obvious classic one, if people remember, is at ESWC 2015, Shocks and Smiths supposedly walked into a room and the envious players were there with their replacements, Kenny S and Apex, in the fucking room while the tournament was going on. And if people don't know, here's a little spoiler we might not have ever actually told you on this show. In the game, in that tournament, that was another one of Cloud9's runs to the finals. And in it, they beat Envy again. And one game they play, I think it was on Cobblestone, mate, literally Shocks looks like he's trolling. He looks like he did just find out he is effectively kicked from his own team and is just like suiciding, not giving a flying
that was the one where they just did the same strat over and over again, wasn't it? That game?
Like that. Yeah, it was like a
and they just kept force buying and rushing and
basically
dying.
Yeah, like they just looked like they were saying, "Look, win or lose, this game's going to be over now. I'm not playing anymore." They looked like it was that. So like that's pretty rough. Because in that scenario, it's not. Because here's the thing: CS is always, by the way, being full of like backstabbing. Like, here's the sad thing: even your favorite players, I'm not joking. Pick any player; it could be some player you love. Nearly all of them, when it comes to dealing with cutting their teammates, are little bitches. They'll just say nothing to the guy, even if he's been a friend of theirs for years. They'll let the manager do it, or some other player do it, or someone else be the bad guy, and then they'll just wait like until the guy's kicked, and then just message him like, "No, sorry, you know, it was nothing to do with me," or anything like that. You don't know how much like high school it is, guys. It's actually depressing. So mostly, that's why I say that's going to be one of the worst ones. Because usually it's more like the old school where you just come online one day and you just kicked out the fucking ventrilo, or you just can't access the private chat. You're like, what's going on? And then the manager guy has to go, look, I've got to have a conversation with you, man, like, and have some like awkward fucking like you are expelled chat, as it were, you know. So it's hard to think of a worse one than that, because that's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's been a number of players as well who found out with like the news post.
I also hate those. By the way, I'll just say this right now, because I know some pro players watching this show. Just fucking tell them to their face, or at least over a call. Just literally, as the leader of the team, contact the person and go, look, this isn't the way like the org wants to deal with it. They're going to contact you officially later, but I'm just going to tell you as a teammate and as your leader, like, I'm going to basically be putting you on like probation, or you're removed from the team, or you bench, whatever it might be. Just do like the decency of doing that, like, because I am sick of people, like I say, who were 25 years old making 25k a month, turning around and acting like a little kid, like, oh, can you kick him out, manager guy? Like, grow the fuck up, will you? It comes with the territory of being a pro.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a pretty good shout. I mean, like, you know, obviously as well, we all know stories about people turning up to like practice, they jump on TeamSpeak or Discord or whatever, and who was that just leaving?
Yep.
Yeah, and then the move happens. That's happened a few times as well. Right, Jerky's Minion, because obviously we just had the anniversary of his death. Asks best moment of 6 that you can
really
remember.
Scared me for a second there when you were like, because I thought you were saying the anniversary of Jerky's Minions stuff. Like, holy fuck, what?
No,
6. Enough and paying all that Patreon money when you're dead. So fair play, but you
know.
I remember, that's right. They were doing like, but I think Mouse Sports every year does like a retweet. So I saw some stuff about that where they were like republicizing it or whatever. It's a long time ago now. That was in 2010. Yeah.
I mean, like the classic one that I'm sure everybody will say is obviously like their run all throughout IEM4, especially the final against Fnatic. This is like 2010. You know, they beat Fnatic, and it was a fucking great series as well. Super close. Back when Tuscan, God, I missed that map. Back when Tuscan was in the mix, but you know those, you know that his performance there was the stuff of legend, and obviously it was when he was sort of coming up. You know, that was the side that I got B in it as well, right? So.
Yeah, one thing a lot of people don't know, by the way, I've got actually a video where I go pretty in depth because I actually wrote a load of articles back in the day. So I basically summarize it in like a Who Was 6 video I did on Thorin's YouTube. One thing that, actually a lot of people don't know, this just shows actually, Richard, how young pro players used to be back then. Because one thing no one ever mentioned at the time is apparently he was like 19 when he died. Now, at the time, that wasn't a big deal, by the way, because everyone was 19 who was a pro player. Like, that wasn't like some alien thing. Like, you didn't have 24-year-old pros back then. But when you look back now, you would like, think about this. Like, off the top of my head, if I look it up now, I'm going to guess Zeewu's like, he's 21 or something. And he's like, when he was born in 2000 or whatever it was.
And he's considered like a youngster, yeah.
He's still supposed to be young,
The 6 death is like, I mean, just everything about it. Like, you know, and obviously everyone knows the story, but just the insane chain of coincidences that even led to it in the first place.
Like, the most detail that people don't know is because he literally had missed a flight and I think he was like gone home and he was driving back to the airport. It's one of those ones, like, you know, those stories, like the most famous one is the fucking Seth MacFarlane guy from Family Guy who's like, he was supposed to be on a plane for 9/11 and he obviously didn't make the plane, right? It's one of those where, like, if he just have made his first flight in this case, it never happens. So it's one of those like crazy, like, it just short, like, sadly I was about to use the reference sliding doors moment there, Richard, but that would actually not only age me ridiculously, but that's not even a good movie. That was like a shit romantic comedy from the 90s or something like that. Why am I referencing Gwyneth Paltrow movies? I don't know.
So it's been a downward spiral for you, mate. But yeah, obviously, like, so, you know, the reason it sort of is a great moment to go and watch, if you go and watch the IM4 final against Fnatic. I mean, obviously that's like the legendary Fnatic lineup as well that they beat. So understand, you know, that was with Khan, DSN, Forest, Get Right. Understand the monumental achievement that was at what was the premier tournament, and obviously understand it's the same year he passes away. So you have this like tragic, tantalizing glimpse of like what could have been, not just from that Mouse Sports team, but from Six as a player, who, as you said, was like 19, 20 when he passed away. So it's
would probably have been a CSGO player if people think about it. He would have been 21 when CSGO was out, so would have probably could have been playing right now, literally.
Yeah, it's really sad. But yeah, as I say, if you've never watched 1.6 games, you know, I think a lot of them still hold up if you can go and find the VODs or go watch the demos. But that one's definitely one to roll back. If you can find it, IM4 European Championship. Check that out. So that'd be mine. I don't know if you've got anything different to that to add.
No, I'll just echo most of that. Like, I also say as well, the tragic thing, obviously beyond his actual death, which is the most thing, but in the context of Counterstrike, it's that if people don't know, that year is like the ultimate blue balls if you ever watch the German Counterstrike scene, because basically, just like the aforementioned Space Soldier scenario, where you're not even from the best country in Counterstrike, and you don't put your best talent together. So famously, in German Counterstrike, Mouse Sports was usually the best team, but then there was an amazing individual player called Roman, who basically played for their rival Attacks most of the time. And this one year, because he himself was like I think a lot of them in the team, like I think God B already was thinking of retiring. A bunch of them had played many, many years. So what they sort of did was in this year, they said, fuck it, let's just do the super team. Right, Roman, come and join Mouse Sports. We'll have me, you, Capio. Like, basically, it was a mega lineup. It was basically almost like the 5 best players in Germany. That's how good this team was. But they were like, we'll do it and we'll just do 1 year. And the idea is we'll just go for broke. Like, we'll try and win the majors whenever. So at the end of that year, in theory, Richard, they were going to break this project up anyway. Maybe God B or someone retires or Capio or whatever. So the sad thing is, if you remember when he died, because it was in like the end of July or whatever, it's like they didn't even get the full year. Like, as you said, they'd already had some really good results. They were actually a team that was matched up with Navi pretty well. So really, like, that's like a massive what if for German, because it could have been the peak of the whole scene, basically. And again, if you look at how CSGO started, because people like Godby and Capio were like, right, well, I'm just completely demotivated for the game now. Like, I'll play a little bit, but I'm not going to be a full pro. That put German Counter-Strike back, like, I'd say like 5 years or something. Like, everyone remembers, like, the aforementioned Dennis story, like, how bad those fucking Nico sports teams were. They were atrocious. Like, it looked like German Counter-Strike would never get a team like Big, quite frankly. They looked like they were just going to be like also runs forever. So it's all those things again where like the impact, it's a mad ripple effect, isn't it? It's just not just one person's effect. It's like the impact of the next team, and then his teammates, and who would have played. Like, you can never know what that fucking butterfly effect is.
Really affected a lot of pros as well, because he was a well-liked dude, and, you know, well-known, well-liked, was a fun guy to be around by all accounts. You know, everyone remembers where they were when Six died. You know, I can still vividly remember I had to travel to Antwerp. I was at the Antwerp Esports Festival when that happened. So when we got the news through, it was rough. But yeah, definitely a contender for the documentary that must get made, if anyone's gonna do that. Right, BP420. If you could replace all of the characters but one in a movie with Muppets, which movie would you choose?
As in just to make it funny, like a real movie.
As in everyone except one character is a Muppet in a film.
I'd say we just make them all Muppets. And basically, what great movie would you like to do a Muppets version?
No, but I understand it, because then obviously, like, you do get some pretty amusing ones. If you like, think of Mad Max Fury Road, where Tom Hardy's the only non-Muppet. It does drastically.
The obvious one to me would be like, I would have the movie The Sixth Sense, but only Haley Joel Osment is human. They're all just Muppets. So by the way, he still just acts the same way. It's terrifying. You know, he's losing his mind. People aren't believing him.
That's a good one.
It would just make it hilarious, wouldn't it? Because it would just become unintentionally really funny, wouldn't it? Like, imagine he's all scared, but it's just like fucking Grover or something. Like, all right, like fucking, oh my god. I know. There's one.
Just Grover throwing up.
Because I like to do
killed by Munchausen's by proxy.
If you're going to make it a stupid premise, as you see with that answer, I'm going going to lean into the stupid part. So here's another funny one. I'm just going to make it a total dickhead move, who I make the human. So I'd have the entire movie Casablanca, but only Sam, the piano player, is a human who barely features in the movie at all. I know, like, why not? Fuck it.
Just playing piano for the Muppets.
just him playing on his own. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, it's pretty
That's a good
good.
one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Mad question. Fair play to you.
I think you should probably go with, like, you've got to go with one of your classic, like, 80s horror movies or something, haven't you? There's got to be one that you could pick that'd be really
Oh,
ridiculous.
mate. Fight Club, where only Ed Norton is human. So even his Tyler Durden is imagine that speech where there's a Muppet version of Tyler. Yeah, it's fucking Gonzo going, I look how you want to look. I fuck how you want to fuck.
That'd be amazing.
That would be sick. And it would have to be Gonzo as well. For some reason, the most maligned Muppet. Well, that's one thing I never understood with Gonzo, right? Like, because Gonzo was like the most maligned Muppet, as if he was somehow especially weird or ugly. But
he looked the same as the rest, I agree.
He looked the same as the rest. All he did was have a slightly, like, bendy nose. I mean, like, wasn't even... That's not a weird quality for a Muppet, is it?
They did almost give him a vibe, though, where, like, he should have basically had, like, one of those fucking, like, beige, what do you even call raincoats? He did look like he had a perv vibe about him, though.
So, anyway, appreciate that, BP420. Carve. So, expecting big things. Let's see. Are there any plans afoot for more best of BTN style content featuring the many recurring characters on the show that I cannot believe how many burns you were able to get in on D-Man? We actually left some stuff out.
Like a specialist one, like you did with the D-Man episode, basically.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have to talk to X-Steffel about that. He's the guy that comes up with all of this stuff, and unfortunately, I'm just overloading him at the moment with all this other stuff because I've got a new podcast series coming out that's all going to be nicely produced and pre-recorded. You'll be right up your street, Duncan. It's all about how the media is just, especially the American media, is a lying sack of shit, and it goes through all the contradictions and lies and all the times they got stories wrong about all the major happenings over the past 5 to 6 years. And I have called Enemy of the People, which Sam is like,
He's scared about that one.
He's just like, I have nothing to do with it.
Right, I see. Okay.
So he's just like that. That is not reflective of my values. He's issued the statement.
It's because here's the problem. I'll give you the spoiler right now. Your problem is if you release that. I agree with it. I think it's totally fine as a name. It's a metaphor, of course. But the real problem is if some nutter kills anyone who's a journalist and uses the phrase "enemy of the people," like that's one of those ones where
it's going to age terribly. Yeah,
you wake up the next day like. Yeah, about that, Sam. You were right on the.
Yeah, you were right.
But, you know.
I mean, look. All I'll say is that first of all, Jim Acosta himself has named a book after it.
Oh, right.
And used that phrase, so it's got to be fair game at that point.
He would lack self-awareness enough.
Yeah, I know. But then also, like, you know, it's not just. It goes back to fucking ancient Rome.
Oh, of course, yeah.
You know, what was it? I can't even remember something. Pubius or so, I don't know. He would call people, you know, public enemy. That's where we get the phrase from. If somebody was deemed to be inherently dangerous to the populace at large, that was the term they would confer on. But anyway, so X-Devil's been massively overloaded. What we're doing is I'm getting him at the moment to go through the original 40 episode season 1 of By the Numbers. Because I've reached out to the people who were the reps for the esports content and Alpha Draft, and they're like, yeah, you can take clips from that, obviously, no problem. So we're going to get like a series of prime numbers, real old school shit. So that'll have all like bits about
shit there we don't even remember. Yeah,
exactly. So we'll wait and see. Anyway, appreciate the question. So Reykjavik, should esports be so willing to accept dodgy crypto money, i.e., such as Riot and their league sponsorship? We're gonna get to another place where we're gonna have just a series of fucking broken promises. It's gonna be very reminiscent of like the 2010 to 2012 era, where it was crowdfunding was the big thing then, and loads of people took the money and ran and didn't deliver what they were going to be, and then it was something else, and then something else, and then something else, and now we're here with these cryptos, and in particular these NFTs being, you know, a much bigger scam than crypto, but it's all bullshit.
Is it all that phases on the ground floor, that shit too? Making all the money, willing, dealing. You guys will never learn in esports. You'll still just keep giving these morons the money. It's mad, isn't it? It's so mad.
Yeah. So look, I've said this. I mean, the Riot one in particular is hilarious because Riot said crypto was an area you couldn't get a sponsorship from. They changed that in April of this year, right? And then TSM went and got a deal with the same company, FTX, that Riot just announced their league sponsorship. And Riot said you cannot change the name of your title, which is something they did in the past when they were TSM Snapdragon.
Yep.
And you can't have their logo on your jerseys because, quote, we cannot edit it out of international broadcasts, which, by the way, I mean, I'm pretty sure you could. It's additional effort and money, right, that you shouldn't have to take.
It goes without saying they edit the fuck out of all the Pride stuff, Richard. So that's just not true, is it? As a statement,
Yeah.
like there's no way they show that if they show some fucking piggyback broadcasting career. There's no way.
Activision Blizzard did that.
Yeah, exactly.
So the idea you can't cut around somewhere wearing a rainbow pin when they literally have done that and are on record as doing that. Activision Blizzard are.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure. You know, it seems a nonsense, but fair enough. But then the optics of you then signing a deal with the same company just a month later, after you've 2 months after you've essentially like made a big song and dance about it. And I would go so far as to say I would argue I think the reason Riot lifted the crypto rule wasn't to benefit the teams but probably because they were in talks with a number of companies. Yes. FTX probably was one, and they knew that they were going to accept a deal. So for me, the problem you got with crypto is no matter what anyone tells you, it's a completely unregulated space. It's way easier than even like the penny stocks of old to do pump and dumps on. You know, people always tell me, oh, but it's good because it's all recorded and traceable. Yeah, only if you know where to look. You know, only if you've got people's wallets, etc. So the idea that, you know, this is like going to be something that's going to end, well, I find laughable. The bottom line is as well, Dota's got a big problem with it. All these top-tier Dota teams are all signing with crypto companies and selling NFTs. And it's just a cash grab, guys. And you'd be fools to get involved in it. I know that with Riot and FTX, it's an exchange. But also understand, you know, OP skins. That was an exchange, wasn't it? That was where you exchanged your skins for money and could cash out, something that was explicitly against the TOS of Valve, you know, of Steam. And also almost anyone that ran any of those case opening scams, skin scams, they all used OP skins to cash out with them taking a cut. So, you know, guys, sure, it's an exchange, but there's so many crypto scams. Like, I mean, literally dozens every day, that the idea that this is a good space that you should get into without acknowledging the potential harm for your fans, because obviously crypto's being sold as something that's young and hip and cool. And so you're seeing teenagers essentially play with an easily manipulated stock market and none of the protections. There's already been a high profile suicide case of someone that went all in on
the Dodge one, probably the Elon Musk one.
No, it wasn't the Dogecoin. It was on that GameStop stock, I think.
Oh, the AMC stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah, it might have been on the AMC stuff.
One of those two, yeah.
I basically didn't understand that the stuff that was a deficit wouldn't have been there. Thought he bankrupted himself and killed himself that morning. So, guys, you know, you gotta, I mean, not to mention as well, there is also the real potential to financially wreck yourself.
Yes.
So, it's dangerous, guys. There's got to be checks and balances. There aren't any. It's why I've always backed away from that stuff and decried it as nonsense till it gets regulated, until we get, you know, the banks and the government's taking over it, which I don't approve of either. But that's what's going to happen. I just wouldn't touch it personally. And I'm sick and tired of all the morons who say because they got in, got out, benefited from a pump and dump essentially, and made money, that it's just a legit space that you don't need to worry about, and only boomer morons would ever criticize it, which is the prevailing sentiment. So I think esports is headed for another bunch of rocks, but we've been here before. No one gives a fuck as long as the check clears.
Oh, I think it's obvious just when you consider the amount of potential scam-related stuff, money laundering, etc., that could be done using that. Again, what people do with esports is they do the same crimes they do in the real world, but they know they're not going to be pursued the same way. They will have the same international police oversight, etc. So, as usual, this will just be a new vehicle for a bunch of scams in esports. And people, it won't be until a bunch of you lose your money that you'll even give a fuck, because you'll stupidly say all the things Richard just said, that the fucking the future, fiat currency. I wouldn't have that. It's like, listen, it's all well and good just saying that, isn't it? But like, it's far from
just love the tech.
Exactly.
I just love the technology. Yeah, but
if people don't know, the only reason I work with a crypto company has nothing to do with crypto. It's because I actually know some of the people involved in the company. So my logic goes, I can trust them, and if I can't, I'll just get the fuck out. But the space in general, I know fuck all about it, mate. So, like, again, as we said with FaZe, who already have exploited this, just expect the scumbags of esports is to be the new frontier they move to and start plying their trade, unfortunately.
Yep. And then the last question, Echo asks, what is your favorite creature that lives underwater? This is a tough one for you because you hate everything that comes out to sea.
That's the thing, and it's actually going to fit in with the theme of what you just said. I have always thought dolphins are good, and here's the thing. I give them, first of all, bonus points for trying not to always be in the sea. They try to go up and jump out and blow the blowhole.
They do.
Looks fun, looks sick. And also there's the whole thing where they're supposed to be mad intelligent. You know, if people don't know, the guy who invented the flotation tank was actually unironically also into like dolphin communication and trying to communicate with them and learn their language. So I think they're pretty interesting. Dolphins got to be up there.
It's hard. I mean, I don't really have any particular. There's plenty of stuff in the sea I don't like, but a clear favorite. Dolphins are cool. Like they are like universally well liked for obvious reasons. For some reason, YouTube started recommending me spider videos. I don't even know why.
I fucking hate them, mate.
Yeah, same, mate. Well, spiders are just cursed with fucking ugliness.
They look ugly as fuck. Yeah,
that's the problem. They're so ugly. Yeah. Like they're not bad creatures. But anyway, I got for some reason YouTube started recommending me spider videos, and I watched one. And it was this fucking video of this spider, right? Basically, like, this guy had fucked it right up and he's meant to be an expert, right? The whole point of when the man mates with the woman tarantula, this particular type of tarantula is, they have to do this, like, hypnotic dance. It's mental, like. They have to do, like, the Batman dance from fucking Adam West, right? Hypnotize it so it doesn't really know what's going on. They have to get in, inject the sperm, and then they need to run away because if the hypnosis wears off, the fucking spider will just kill it because it'll be like, what's going on here then? I'll just fucking eat you. It's better to have a meal, right? So this fella he locked it in. He locked it in.
Is this guy saw? Would you like to play a game?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, do you want to play a game? No, I don't. I don't like. No, you're right. I don't like it.
So reasonable.
So I'm not a spider handler. But even I know that they have to be able to get away. And what he did is he just closed the door and was just like going, like, oh well, yep, you can see there she's took it, and well, we'll wait and see. We'll know in a few minutes. Get him out! Mission. He's there. He's like Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible, like toast. Like, get me out, Ving Rhames, get me out. There's another boomer reference for you for movies. But he didn't. He just locked him in, and then he came back and he went. Sadly, and he was like acting all bored about you, mad cunt. You did it on purpose. I know you did. And he was like, he's a creepy guy. He also, and then I was like watching this guy, and I was like, what are his videos like? He did another one, right? Get this. A spider can die of constipation. I didn't know this neither.
I didn't know this shit.
Yeah, so tarantulas, right? You know, near the little spinner at the back, right? If they're one of the web making ones, that's their arse, right? Okay. But when they shed skin, which they do regularly, and they typically like go into like sort of a period where they're not as active and they don't eat as much. Shedding skin's quite a traumatic time. It's generally the time a spider dies. If you keep a pet spider, generally when they're shedding, that's when they die because they have to get all the skin off, or they essentially like suffocate, or can't eat. They're dragging it around. It's a nightmare. But the other aspect is you have to check a spider's ass, right? Because if any of that stuff clogs up their hoop, they can't shit. And so this one guy was going, yeah, my tarantula is lethargic today. And it was like a vlog. It was like a diary. He's like, my tarantula's like super lethargic. He's going on. And then he was like sad again. He's like, oh, it's died, guys. And he cut he cut open to like do a like autopsy to try and find out why he died, and its arse was just clogged. It couldn't shit
same guy.
for months. Yes, same dude.
This guy's just killing spider after spider, going, I don't understand. All I did is put this one in custard and it's drowned. Like, who is this guy? Just a spider murderer?
No, but the thing is, he's one of the most popular tarantula holders, right? The whole point is like this guy. So I don't know if I'm missing a point here, but like if I had a spider, right? He has these like boxes. They're not really all that big, and apparently they don't need much space. I'd want to give my spider a bit of space though. But he has this room. It's like a dungeon, and they're just on shelves and boxes, like some insane scene. But he's got like hundreds of them in these tiny little boxes on shelves next to each other, and he goes, "This is this one." It's like you're not really. They're not pets at that point. That's someone else. That's like an evil alien overlord coming down. It's like an episode of Star Trek when they all end up in a zoo. Or that episode of The Twilight Zone with Roddy McDowell. That's just fucking weird, that. Anyway, whatever. So, my favourite creature lives under seas dolphins as well. Me and Duncan really bored you, and you wasted your question, Echo. Sorry, mate. Enjoy your night shift. Right, that's it. That's the show. We're wrapping it up. So, obviously, shout out to the sponsor, NordVPN. Again, if you want to get 70, specifically 73 or 74% off, 4 months free, go and do it. Sign up, nordvpn.com/RLS. Obviously, shout out to our patrons as well. $100 patrons, Jerky's Minion, Chris, Will the Weed Wrangler, Cathal, J-Dubs, Tobias Bernasconi, Carv, Benakagi, and Marcus Kyumpar. And our $50 patrons, Otarian, Frankie, J-Ray, Zumba, Petty Grievances, Tim Frost, Bukowski, Dancer Master, Adam Ox, Nolan, Judas, Can of Pasito, Airhammer, Norwegian Clamai, Bacon, Goody Woody, Sarathenia, Gerhan Kaya, Lonnie, Fursock, Daniel Magnuson, Echo, Rez, Miss Alcoholic, BP420, Watch Doge, Reykjavik on Steam, Carter, CMAC 1991, Alex C, and Sard Sawar. That was by the numbers. We'll see you sometime next week. Till then, take care of yourself.